The gloomy sky covers the sun, a line of people follows each other towards the tall castle, the demonic path Vo Lam Min, also known as the Demon Palace. The man sighed softly, wow, crowded as ants. The man standing next to him with a light-colored goatee squinted, of course, how could it be otherwise? It said that as long as you have talent, regardless of your death door sect origin, you can be taught the demonic path martial arts. This is a once-in-a-millennium opportunity. What madman would miss? The other man scoffed, damn, if I were younger, would definitely try to squeeze in and give it a shot. The man with the goatee was suddenly surprised, but... From the crowd, he noticed a young teenager standing out. Was there a murder or something? The other man raised his eyebrow. What death is there here? The demon appraisal assembly hasn't even started yet. What nonsense are you talking about? He looked worried, but... He noticed the young man, who had been standing still a moment ago, his face darkening, head down. What's wrong with that little corpse collector? He tightened the straps of the wooden box on his back, looked up at the sky. Her pupils flashed red, containing deep resentment. Everything officially starts now, Grandpa. The young teenager was just a tiny child, like a 5-year-old, curled up in the thick snow. Bu Yunseal, that's the precious name you gave me. The old man with a benevolent face stepped forward and smiled gently, reaching out his hand to the little boy, a child abandoned in the ice. I took you in and raised you, I followed you, a corpse collector, to learn this trade. Yunseal sat next to him, watching him intently as he healed others. You look just like a swift sword master. The other man chuckled softly. Oh, why do you think so? His eyes widened, his cheeks flushed red. Even though this profession is hard and despised by people, I've never cared. Although you are skinny, your calves are unusually firm, the muscles in front of the shin, that's the mark of the swift sword master. He suddenly ruffled his head, making him freeze. You have sharp eyes. He smiled kindly, happily praising him. This child is truly a born corpse collector. He pursed his lips, his eyes sparkling, looking at him. No matter how difficult it is, I will always have you by my side, until that fateful day comes. The moonlight shone down on the old mattress in the dilapidated room. He gently pulled back the blanket and sat up. The bamboo rose intertwined motionless under the night sky. Suddenly, a strong wind blew, causing them to sway. He turned his head slightly and glanced out the window, his face full of thought. He closed his eyes, lowered his head slightly. The good do not come, those who come are not good, indeed it is true. He gently shook him. Seol, wake up a little, son. He patted his shoulder. Come here and play dead with me. Yunseal rubbed his sleepy eyes. How can I play at this hour? He said softly, if you do well this time, I will buy you the striding art outfit and the clear Dao sword you've always dreamed of. His eyes lit up happily. Really, Grandpa? He confirmed. Yes, really. Yunseal smiled happily, crawled into the wardrobe. Yes. He squinted gently outside, reminding him, this time you have to try to endure until sunrise. Yunseal was surprised. Yes, until sunrise. He did not answer, closed the wardrobe door tightly. His hand clenched the sword sheath so tightly that the veins stood out. He cautiously stepped out of the house. His eyes were full of vigilance and murderous intent, hiding pretty well, just like rats. A hooded figure holding a sword appeared, isn't it? His robes dragged under the bright moonlight. Oh, 7 fingers demonic blade, Bu Janyang. He frowned sternly. It's been a long time since someone called me by that name. The assassin's red pupils were revealed from under the veil. I didn't expect the one who resolutely refused the vice leader's seat of the Demon Palace. He screamed maniacally, holding his sword rushing towards him. Yet you are willing to do this lowly job to make a living. 2 swords collided, creating a dazzling light and murderous intent. I am a corpse collector. Janyang glared, not to make a living, but to atone for sins. The other person was stunned, his eyes full of resentment and madness looking at him. Janyang frowned. If you want my old life, just take it, but let's go somewhere else, lest we disturb the people around here. The other man stepped back, bowed his head and chuckled. He put his hands on his hips, turned and left. Okay, but don't even think about escaping. Janyang narrowed his eyes, his face full of thought. From inside the house came a soft noise. The tall wardrobe shook back and forth. Yunseal breathed a sigh of relief, pushed the wardrobe door to the ground. He bit his lip and cried, shivering, hugging his arms. I can't stand it anymore. Even with the magic outfit and the Dao sword, I'm freezing to death. He suddenly noticed. Grandpa. Yunseal staggered out. Where did you go? Normally you would wait for me. Could it be that you were called away by the people in the manor? Yunseal closed his eyes in dissatisfaction, opened the door of the house. Honestly, those people never valued corpse collectors. Suddenly, Yunseal froze, his pupils contracted. The scene outside was desolate, strangely devastated. A strong gust of wind blew, causing him to look blankly at the sky. Yunseal felt worried and swallowed hard. He mustered his strength and ran quickly into the bamboo forest. Yunseal's footsteps gradually slowed. Then he stood frozen in place. Yunseal's eyes widened, and tears welled up. Before him, his grandfather's body was battered, his hair disheveled, his eyes closed tightly and bleeding. Yunseal screamed. His grandfather was leaning against a tree trunk, both arms broken. "Grandfather," he collapsed beside him. "Grandfather, what happened to you?" Janyang spoke with difficulty. "Yunseal, is that you?" He sobbed in terror. "Yes, it's me, grandfather. What happened?" His grandfather whispered with effort. "I'm sorry, my dear." Blood flowed from Janyang's eyes, and he calmly resigned himself. This old man must be taking a step ahead. As he spoke, he coughed up blood. "If I die, don't forget to pray for me." Yunseal turned pale. "Grandfather." He was wide-eyed with fear, hurriedly supporting his grandfather. "Grandfather, don't talk anymore." Janyang slumped forward. "Yunseal, listen carefully." He leaned weakly against his hand, exhausted. "Never, ever think about revenge." Yunseal's eyes filled with tears. He gritted his teeth in indignation. Yunseal roared, his eyes wild with murderous intent, unwilling to accept it. "They brought you to this state, I absolutely cannot forgive them." Yunseal clung to his grandfather's clothes. "Otherwise," he buried his head in the only relative in his life, "otherwise just let me go with you. You used to say that the underworld is no different from the mortal world. Instead of living in the mortal world without you, I'd rather go to the underworld with you." Janyang closed his eyes, his expression softening. He gritted his teeth in pain. This old man thought he could pass away peacefully. Janyang whispered, "Yunseal, this is my last request, leave this place, go far away." And he raised his head to look at him, his kind face smiling gently. "I have been very happy with you during these days." Yunseal's eyes widened, his pupils contracted as his grandfather's body collapsed. His body slipped from his hands. Janyang fell limply to the ground. Yunseal sat motionless, his face pale. "Grandfather." Janyang lay still and motionless. Yunseal's eyes widened, filled with anguish. Tears gradually stopped, he narrowed his eyes, his pupils darkening. Yunseal pursed his lips, his face expressionless as he turned away. He brought Janyang's body back home. "Grandfather." Yunseal caressed his grandfather's face. His pupils gradually turned red. "But I can't listen to you." His face was filled with hatred, tears streaming down uncontrollably again. In his mind, he saw the image of his grandfather being attacked, his two arms clearly severed by a single sword stroke. He simulated the fight in his mind. Moreover, it was a sword move slashing upwards from below, extremely rare. Yunseal used his hands to pry open his grandfather's eyelids. Not only that, the image of Janyang being directly targeted by murderous intent was vividly imprinted in his imagination. The murderer even changed moves halfway to stab straight into both eyes. Yunseal gritted his teeth in resentment. Such a strange sword technique, it must be. When he opened his eyes, his jet-black pupils had contracted with overwhelming hatred. Yunseal held his grandfather's legs, his face darkened. The sword technique of the demonic path, among which the martial art that can cause such injuries, must be the India yoga art, a technique of controlling bones and muscles at will. He carefully examined his grandfather's body. The back of Janyang was covered with slashes and small round wounds, the whole back too. There were a total of 93 hidden weapons. Even with the sky-obscuring flower rain, a maximum of only 66 hidden weapons can be launched. In his mind, he redrew the image of that time, the masked man shooting needles at his grandfather from behind. It didn't look like there were accomplices. Could this be a hidden weapons of the evil emperor that can launch hundreds of needles at once? Yunseal pulled out his grandfather's tongue, moreover the area under the tongue. Janyang's fingernails seemed to have a strange evil energy seeping inside, and the inside of the fingernails were discolored. Yunseal glared, realizing something horrifying. This was a sign of being poisoned by the extremely potent flesh-rot blood failure poison. His mind drifted into a haze of the information he had just gathered. He used the hidden weapons of the evil emperor, considered the best in the world. And he also used the flesh-rot blood failure poison, a terrifying master of the demonic path. There couldn't be many like him. Yunseal closed his eyes. Definitely. The image of Janyang lying motionless gradually faded away. "Go." He slowly closed his eyes and calmed down. When Yunseal opened his eyes again, blood streamed from their sockets. "I will definitely find you." Tears falling on the thin page seeped down beside the name written neatly in black ink. He bowed his head and registered before the gates of the Martial Arts Alliance. The gatekeeper, hands on his hips, leaned towards him, sneering. "Sin Yang sect, what nameless, insignificant sect is that? Probably just a bunch of small fry clinging to the demonic sect, scared to death by the life-or-death contract." He frowned and shouted irritably, "Hey kid, if you don't dare to sign, don't waste my time, go home. He slowly raised his finger, the gatekeeper glanced at him. Yunseal's pupils turned blood red, he bit and tore the tip of his finger. The two gatekeepers were completely stunned by the sight. Yunseal forcefully pressed his finger down, from the moment he died, my life has completely collapsed. When he lifted his hand, a dark red fingerprint stood out on the paper, the only thing left was the path of revenge. The two guards looked at the registration book, then watched him leave, and so, this tournament. The man who had just been mocking him was now completely stunned, his mouth hanging open. Yunseal tightened his grip on the strap, his eyes filled with hatred, and stepped through the gates of the Martial Arts Alliance. It was the first step on that path. Like two different Taiji King swords, the proud golden dragon and the fierce black tiger growled at each other, the orthodox path and the demonic path. The battle between the two powerful forces dominating the Murim had lasted for centuries. Heroes were written in history books, and heretics were recorded on paper in contrasting colors. The orthodox path, headed by the Murim Alliance leader, used justice as its guiding principle. The demonic path, gathered around the demonic sect, only worshipped ultimate power. The two forces had long maintained a balance. Peace would disappear when one side wanted to rise up and demand more. The orthodox path craved to break that balance. The bright blue sky shone down on a chaotic world. Therefore, the 18 Alliance Masters, representing the orthodox path, were honored as the great, righteous warriors. At the same time, darkness also produced powerful individuals who felt threatened by the Murim Alliance's restraint. The demonic sect also sought to consolidate its power and immediately launched the 10 Demonic Disciples plan. A scroll of announcement was issued. Regardless of origin, the demonic sect would impart all of its secret, practical martial arts to the 10 most outstandingly talented individuals. This audacious offer, regardless of sect, teaching martial arts of the demonic path, Yunseal's eyes filled with even more determination. The doors opened, and facing him were over 100 people who had been waiting. It had attracted countless young people in the Murim to the demonic sect. Inside, there were all kinds of people, all giving him unfriendly looks. Everyone in the room turned to pay attention to the newcomer. Yunseal pulled on the strap and silently looked around. Among them, there were many who had a strange feeling. Suddenly, he noticed a point in this crowd. His eyes seemed to want to see through each person. Could there be anyone related to the culprit who killed his master? The mysterious figure beneath the assassin's mask. Yunseal pursed his lips, thoughtfully pondering. It must be a deep, unfathomable master. He unconsciously reached out his hand as if that person were right in front of him. To avenge him, I must reach that level, but right now, I have no sect, no martial arts. His eyes filled with hatred, he clenched his fist. Becoming one of the 10 demonic disciples is the only way to quickly become strong. Suddenly, the people around him were all surprised, stunned, A tall, imposing man wearing a white fur coat appeared. He shouted fiercely, "This one is the head instructor, Hyok Ryanyoung, head instructor, Golden Claw, Blood Eyes Hyok Ryanyoung." Those below were amazed, chattering noisily. The head instructor, is that really the Golden Claw, Blood Eyes head instructor? Ryanyoung glared, this place is to find the #1 prodigy of the demonic path. His words shocked those below. Only those who pass all the trials set by the demonic sect are qualified to become official candidates for the 10 demonic disciples. Yunseal silently glanced at him. The first trial. Ryanyoung waved his hand. People from the Medicine King Hall will examine your tendons and bones. The group of people below started shouting again. Wait, does this count as a challenge? How can we? Let us have a martial arts competition instead. The men in black robes and straw hats quickly stepped forward, twisting the applicants' bodies, causing them to groan in pain. He said in a deep voice, "You've passed, come here." The applicant whose bones were just broken looked bewildered. Yes, on second thought, maybe we don't need a martial arts competition, do we? Yunseal silently watched. If you pass, will you be transferred to the next stage, tendons and bones? He stood still. He's here. The man reached out to him. He grabbed one of Yunseal's shoulders. The soldier gasped in astonishment. No way. He gripped Yunseal's elbow tightly. His tendons and bones are completely ruined. The soldier lowered his head, his heart full of confusion. It's strange that he can participate in this tournament, but Yunseal was silent, his eyes full of hatred lit up with murderous intent. He raised his eyebrows, subconsciously avoided it. This murderous aura alone is rare to find someone who can compare. He pretended to cough and turned to leave, but still couldn't let it go. Yunseal pursed his lips, as expected. He put his hand on his shoulder and massaged it, just like the old man taught him. What I've learned so far is just corpse washing techniques. I can't overcome this challenge. Yunseal lowered his hand, but I can't stop here. The bright sunlight shone down on the arena. A loud shout rang out. the first challenge has ended. A certain boy gritted his teeth. What? He glared, veins popping on his forehead, roaring, what kind of rule is this? He confronted Ryan. If you only choose demonic path successors based on tendons and bones, then what's the point of organizing this tournament? He shouted loudly, this is unfair. The other person bowed his head, unfair. Ryan slowly explained the nature of the human body. The most important factor for martial arts training is tendons and bones. The demonic sect organizes tournaments to recruit talents everywhere for that reason. He looked down. How dare you demand fairness here when you can't even meet the most basic requirement of tendons and bones? He froze, his momentum halved, but at least give me a chance to. Ryan glared. The other person was staggered by his aura. Don't worry. Ryan exuded a powerful aura, overwhelming him. In the second challenge, I will choose talents who, despite their weak tendons and bones, still have the ability to practice outstanding martial arts. He turned and left. The second challenge will begin now. Ryan turned his head and glanced back warningly. From now on, you will slaughter each other. His words confused everyone with eyes, to win the position of the survivor. The Dongjing gang were scared. Slaughter each other. We are all people of the demonic path. What a strange challenge. Is it real? The man from earlier tightened his grip on his weapon. Humph, so that's how it is. He glared viciously. Okay, sooner or later I'll have to kill. He set his sights on Yunseal not far away. Veins bulged on the back of his hand. He tightened his grip on his weapon. Wei Yunqing tightly grasped the shaft of his spear. He rushed forward like lightning. Then decisively launched the spear towards him. Then, Wei Yunqing revealed a smile as if releasing all the pressure, saying, today I can kill you. On Red Dragon's side, Red Dragon's whole body was bleeding incessantly. He gritted his teeth and shouted, Wei Yunqing. However, a second later, he couldn't hold on and fell to the ground with a thud. Seeing him lying motionless on the ground with wide eyes, the people around him exclaimed in fear, he's really dead. Blood, too much blood. Bu Yunseal lowered his eyes to observe Red Dragon's corpse, secretly commenting, truly wonderful. The blade slipped through the ribs, hitting the heart. The footwork is not perfect, but he is quick and has good reflexes. On the other side, the man Wei Yunqing pulled the spear out of Red Dragon's corpse, confidently shouted a declaration of war. Whoever wants to be stabbed through like him, come at me. I, Wei Yunqing, will accept the challenge. Hyok Ryan on the high platform observed everything, and spoke, assessing him. His action ability is not bad, but it seems he is the kind with no brains. As expected, they are all useless trash. The subordinate next to him agreed, you are so right. Then, he secretly analyzed the situation in his heart. In this situation, showing off that you are dangerous is no different from turning yourself into a target for the whole group. Anyway, the others will attack. At this time, everyone below was gradually becoming panicked. What should we do if this continues? A man started to attack at this moment. He slashed hard at another person, shouting, die. However, a second later, he suddenly became frightened, stuttering as he backed away, I didn't mean to. Unexpectedly, in the next second, the man was stabbed in the stomach by another person. Hyok Ryan observed them from above with a cold gaze. Amidst the continuous screams of pain, he calmly thought, these children are not yet accustomed to death. Below, there was no shortage of faces terrified to the point of panic, or life and death battles. The scene had become extremely chaotic. Hyok Ryan continued to think to himself, reason is easily paralyzed by the fear of death. Just then, he suddenly saw something. Hyok Ryan put his hand to his mouth and exclaimed softly with interest. His subordinates also looked in the direction he was looking, and smiled and exclaimed oh. It turned out they had just discovered a man with Bu Yunseal. The subordinate commented, not everyone is a fool. Amidst the people fighting for survival, only Bu Yunseal and the man calmly leaned against the wall. Looking at the scene of death before him, Bu Yunseal with disdain, thought to himself, these idiots, letting the fear of death paralyze their reason. Hyok Ryan said they had to survive until there was only one person left, so the important thing was not killing but surviving. Thinking this, he suddenly sat down, reaching out towards the corpse, saying to himself, if I can maintain my composure and act rationally, I can survive. I must survive. As he said this, the image of himself and Bu Janyang examining corpses appeared in Bu Yunseal's mind. In reality, he grabbed the severed arm of the corpse and began to examine it. In the arena, a man in blue, using a flail, was gaining the upper hand. Quickly, the dead lay scattered on the ground, making it easy for him to notice Bu Yunseal in the distance. What's that? That guy looks like nothing, must be trying to sneak away. And he was still focused on examining the corpse. The sword wounds were thin but dense, killed by fast swordsmanship combined with a soft sword. At the same time, the man in blue had locked on to the target. he swung the flail in his hand and muttered, "Let me send you on your way." The iron ball flew towards Bu Yunseal like lightning. However, it only hit the box on his back. The box shattered, causing the neatly folded clothes to fall out. The man in blue saw it and pointed and laughed, mockingly asking, "Huh, what, that box, are you a mortician?" Bu Yunseal's face darkened, he slowly stood up. In his mind, he suddenly remembered his past self with his eyes wide open. Bu Yunseal at that time had carefully touched the clothes on the table with the small letter. He opened the letter, which read only 4 words, "Happy Birthday." Thinking back to that time, Bu Yunseal softly exclaimed, "Dad." A second later, his eyes turned red with murderous intent. Bu Yunseal and the man in blue now made direct eye contact. He once again swung the flail in his hand, disdainfully exclaiming, "What is this? What can you do with that sword?" But this man didn't know that a shadow was secretly appearing behind him. The man straightaway struck a blow to the man in blue's back. In the blink of an eye, he fell to the ground. After that, the man took the initiative to say to him, "No need to thank me, with a useless guy like you attracting attention, it's easier for me to act." But Bu Yunseal didn't pay attention to him, but only focused on examining the corpse of the man in blue. The man smiled and commented on him, "I see you have a good eye, but it seems you haven't learned any martial arts." While he was speaking, someone wanted to attack him from behind, but he didn't even bother to look, directly swinging his sword behind him to deal with him, still smiling, "A waste like you, I can take down any time." Bu Yunseal didn't answer, coldly glancing back. On the high platform, Hyok Ryanyoung began to be curious about that man, that kid, he's holding the Sukjong, who is he that he possesses a relic of Black Soul, the one called the number 1 wandering swordsman. The subordinate next to him immediately reported, "His name is Nung Wongang, it is said that he found the secret and the sword that Black Soul left in a deep mountain cave. But because he learned the sword from his secrets his moves haven't really mastered it." Hyok Ryanyoung continued to observe Nung Wongang's technique, saying, "Anyway, he has grasped Black Soul's true teachings, so he can be considered his disciple. Although his physique is somewhat inferior, he is still a promising candidate for the position of the 10th demonic successor. I think that child is the most outstanding." He highly regarded him among the people, even though he was just a kid who didn't deserve the Sukjong, "But here I'm afraid no one is stronger than him." The subordinate agreed, "That's right." He also predicted the outcome, if there are no unexpected events, then he will be the last survivor. Below, Bu Yunseal was still diligently examining the corpses. Under the dark sky, the continuous screams of misery rang out, further increasing the gloom. After a long time, Nung Wongang wiped his sword and said, as expected. His eyes were extremely sharp, looking directly at the target and continued, "You have survived to the last minute." At that moment, amidst the scattered corpses, only Bu Yunseal and Nung Wongang remained. He cracked his knuckles expectantly, saying, "Just defeat you, and I'll become a candidate for the 10-demon successor, come on." He, on the other hand, didn't react at all, just stood still in place. Bu Yunseal's eyes coldly stared at him, thinking inwardly, "He's the strongest on the arena, but I've already discovered his weakness." Bu Yunseal slowly stepped forward, holding his sword. Nung Wongang looked up, waiting, "Let's see what you've got." As soon as he finished speaking, he gathered momentum, preparing to charge. He unleashed many different strikes towards him, but even though he dodged, he still got hit. This made Nung Wongang extremely amused and contemptuous. "All you can do is clumsily dodge like this, it's a miracle you've survived until now." He observed and thought, "On the surface, it looks like you're being overwhelmed, but if you look closely." He seemed to realize his scheme. He skillfully adjusted his position at the end of each attack. Bu Yunseal's clothes were torn open to avoid fatal blows, the slashes kept hitting him to the point where syrup splattered on his face. Suddenly, his pupils contracted. He memorized the attack pattern by observing the corpses killed by Nung Wongang. He secretly praised, "His observation ability is truly extraordinary." After the last few dodges, Bu Yunseal stopped and said dismissively, "Your swordsmanship is too poor." He continued in a mocking tone, attacking so fiercely, "Yet you only managed to scratch my skin." These words made him think, "He dares to provoke me like this." He clenched his fist behind his back. It's true that he's good at dodging, but counterattacking is a completely different matter. Then he looked at him, "With a body like that, it's hard to unleash a powerful attack." Nung Wongang was a little amused. "I was originally planning to let you live a little longer, but you're in a hurry to find death." Then he charged like a madman, "Then I'll grant your wish." At that speed, he got closer and closer to him. "Here it comes." Bu Yunseal wasn't afraid at all. This is the only chance. He began to recall the previous events based on what he had learned from examining the corpses killed by Nung Wongang. His eyes widened at what he saw. his ultimate move always targets the opponent's weak points. Those corpses only had 2 points of injury, the heart and the head. Therefore, when revealing his killing intent, his blade often points to the upper part of the opponent. If so, just as he unleashes a fatal kick, he'll also duck down to avoid it. This made Nung Wongang stunned. Before he could react, Bu Yunseal pointed his blade towards him. Just as he was about to aim for his neck, a familiar voice rang out, "Seol." The image of Bu Janyang appeared. The Hyol Yun. Is a place that even martial arts masters find difficult to train to. Even if a child put all their strength into hitting it, it would be enough to knock out an adult. These words made him even more confident, and he brought the blade towards him. And streams of Chinsu chili sauce begin to shoot out. Bu Yunseal already stabbed his sword straight into his neck. Nung Wongang slowly collapsed. He had been defeated. Even now, Bu Yunseal remained motionless. He looked at them and asked, "Is it over?" He stood observing and couldn't help but be surprised. "I really didn't expect that." Hyok Ryanyoung showed clear disappointment. "I had high expectations for Black Soul's swordsmanship." The sound of drums began to resonate with his voice. Bu Yunseal, Jianyang's sect, has passed the second round. He stood motionless, without any reaction. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out again, "Yunseal." It was the voice of Bu Janyang. He was looking for him. "Yunseal, where are you, Yunseal?" Seeing him, he couldn't hide his joy and called out, "Grandfather." Bu Yunseal ran towards him. "I'm here, Grandpa, Grandpa, Grandpa," but it seemed like he didn't hear Yunseal. When it was time to catch up, Bu Janyang called Yunseal again. His pupils contracted in fear. His eyes were gone when he turned around. "I can't see your face clearly." His mother's sweat, his own sweat fell together. Immediately after, Bu Yunseal sat up. Everyone turned to look at him. The silent space was only filled with the sound of rushing sea waves, and there was their boat. Bu Yunseal blankly raised his hand to his head. "This place is inside a boat, so I fainted. That's right, I lost a lot of blood." Then he looked at his bandaged wound. The wound was quite serious, but now I almost feel no pain. Surely the devil's advocate has hired a talented doctor. Then, he widened his eyes, but the eyes that had been staring at him for a while now didn't say anything. The people here were generally strong, and there were also a few familiar faces. It seemed like the people who passed the first level suddenly one of them started laughing, which caught the other's attention. As for Bu Yunseal, she sighed, her eyes filled with contempt, an understandable reaction. A person standing above shouted down, "Get in the boat." He announced in a low voice, "The next pass is this Hell Island. In the middle of the endless ocean a ship is moving on it, playing the evening sun." The ship then stopped in front of a port. From the huge ship, a person jumped into the port. This was Hell. This person, after getting off, then glanced up the train. "Everyone follow me." According to this person's words, the people on the train got off the train one by one and started to go up the mountain in front of them. It was already dusk. The girl began to instruct the people below, "These are your residences. All clothes and weapons you brought with you must be handed over, then put on the prepared clothes and swords and go out." This girl stood on high and kept speaking down to let the people below understand, "Choice is freedom. Choose the cave you want and go in." Everyone took turns choosing. Only Bu Yunseal stood still in one place. Bu Yunseal silently observed everything. Bu Yunseal's eyes were extremely gloomy. After a while of observing, Bu Yunseal started to move. As he walked, he looked at the remaining people. The two people in the distance kept whispering to each other. "This place seemed okay. I thought it would be damp, but it turned out to be quite comfortable. It was really cramped." The girl in pink turned to the person opposite and said, "I was the one who had my eyes on this place first." The man opposite was not convinced and immediately refuted, "This is absurd. I clearly came first and was just looking." "So what?" Bu Yunseal glanced over and observed. While the two were arguing, a young man walked over. "Hey, stop arguing. There are many other good places." Bu Yunseal didn't care much, thinking to herself, "These guys, they have no idea what happened at the second pass. They're completely unguarded." Bu Yunseal glanced at him with murderous eyes, thinking back. Among the people who passed the first level, there were quite a few people wearing luxurious and expensive clothes. The young man in green immediately felt guilty after hearing what the other young man said. "I said too much." The other girl had also calmed down. "No, I also wondered in my heart, could it be that most of them were descendants of famous and powerful families?" Bu Yunseal walked and thought about the torn photo. So the second gate was the place to cast out those who could be killed without any problem. At this moment, someone quietly spoke up, making Bu Yunseal startled. "She hasn't chosen yet." Bu Yunseal turned his head, his face worried, his voice a bit timid. "You've been unusually slow since a while ago. Now's not the time to be leisurely." He had a serious face and a cold voice, making Bu Yunseal startled and turn around. He looked at Bu Yunseal, thinking to himself, looking at his eyes he was suspicious, but he didn't expect him to actually survive the second test. Let's see what he will choose this time, he said with a cold voice. There's not much time left, hurry up and decide. Bu Yunseal saw his seriousness, he immediately pointed to a cave. Then let's choose that place. The cave that Bu Yunseal chose had an extremely small and narrow entrance. Seeing Bu Yunseal choose that cave, the people around kept pointing and saying, what, he actually chose that place, he really chose a place that suited his ragged appearance, so dirty. But Bu Yunseal still didn't care, her face didn't change color. Seeing Bu Yunseal like that, he just forced a smile. Bu Yunseal. He looked at the little Bu Yunseal in front of him, his smile getting wider and wider. What a genius. He looked at the cave that Bu Yunseal pointed to and felt a bit of admiration in his heart. At first glance, it just looked like a dirty, narrow cave, but that was only the entrance. The inside was wide enough to practice martial arts, and the narrow cave entrance also helped prevent surprise attacks. He turned away, thinking to himself, usually people would just look at the cave entrance and ignore it, but he was observing very carefully. He smiled. Okay, get ready now. Bu Yunseal glanced at his back. After a while everyone went to change clothes. Bu Yunseal also went to change clothes. He looked at the black spray clothes on her body. He stood at the head of the crowd above, continuously saying down, I will explain what you guys have to do from now on. Bu Yunseal heard that and only glanced at him without paying much attention. He began to talk about the rules of the competition. In this hell, there were 10 martial arts schools built, and each school could learn the martial arts of the 10 great demon schools. He tapped on the wooden board, could learn all or just learn one, the choice was free. Bu Yunseal was lost in the crowd, the people around him kept chattering to each other. The schedule was the same, sleeping was fine, playing was fine, learning martial arts was fine, it was up to you to decide. Bu Yunseal's face turned serious, and she started to think, strange, it was the ones who turned the second gate into hell, it was the ones who turned the second gate into hell. Those people kept talking and greeting each other, the atmosphere became strangely bustling. Where to go? One of them suddenly spoke up, of course it's the Hua Yu Jian sect, I heard that's the strongest sect. The others kept urging each other on, hurry up. Bu Yunseal glanced around, thinking to himself, most of them are heading in one direction, the flowing petal sword sect. Bu Yunseal started to recall what he had seen before, he'd heard it was the strongest force among the 10 great demonic paths. As Bu Yunseal walked past them, he thought to himself, learning the strongest martial arts would definitely be beneficial, but for me, who hasn't learned any martial arts at all, what I need now isn't some supreme technique. Suddenly, Bu Yunseal's eyes widened, staring intensely in one direction. Then, Bu Yunseal headed in a different direction from the others. What I need right now is. Bu Yunseal arrived at an abandoned house in the forest. Bu Yunseal stared intently at the house, his eyes dark. He looked at the desolate house, wondering, is this really a martial arts school? Bu Yunseal now began to ponder what he had surmised. The Midnight Shade sect is now just a decaying sect, barely enough to have a name among the 10 great demonic paths. But it has maintained its position thanks to having produced countless masters in the past. My grandfather used to tell me about the asterisk Mirim. Bu Yunseal said to himself, then I will. In the midst of his thoughts, he was startled and looked down at the ground. Bu Yunseal looked extremely worried, frowning as he stared at the ground. Bu Yunseal now began to observe his surroundings. From where did a person emerge from the ground? What is this? The person stuck his head up, his eyes full of murderous intent. You came here to become a successor of the 10 demons. This person is S.A. Wu, the secret hall master of the Midnight Shade sect. Bu Yunseal stood on the ground, looking at the head that was emerging from the ground. Bu Yunseal looked a little flustered, cautiously looking at the face below. After realizing who the person was, Bu Yunseal respectfully clasped his hands. Yes, I've come to learn the martial arts of the Midnight Shade sect. Bu Yunseal looked down, his expression worried. S.A. Wu's eyes were full of murderous intent, his eyes narrowed. Then S.A. Wu emerged completely from the ground. As he emerged, his face turned serious. S.A. Wu looked at Bu Yunseal, his voice cold. Don't court death, go back now. I have no intention of teaching martial arts, especially to someone as fragile as you. Bu Yunseal now answered S.A. Wu's question. I heard that if one successfully trains in your martial arts, they will obtain the most enduring life in the world. S.A. Wu descended from the ground. Not bad, you know quite a bit about this declining Wudang style. Bu Yunseal felt as if countless knives were pointed at him, but even the most talented in the world find it difficult to master the martial arts of this sect. The martial arts here begin with the transformation of the body. With your physique, you'll surely die in less than a day. S.A. Wu sank down, but his eyes were still fixed on Bu Yunseal. If you understand, then get lost. Bu Yunseal knelt down and respectfully bowed to Sa Wu. Sa Wu was puzzled by this action. What are you doing? Bu Yunseal was still kowtowing before Sa Wu. You have deigned to instruct me, so as a disciple, shouldn't I be able to kowtow to pay respects to my master? Sa Wu looked towards him, utterly confused. Crazy fool. After saying that, Sa Wu closed his eyes. He began to think, then Sa Wu said to Bu Yunseal, "Alright, I will teach you." Saying that, Sa Wu began to push himself up from the ground with both hands, but don't misunderstand, the reason I'm teaching you is only because it's an order from the demonic palace. Bu Yunseal, seeing Sa Wu's actions, don't be stunned. Sa Wu stood tall in front of Bu Yunseal. I am Sa Wu, the secret hall master of the Midnight Shade sect. From now on, call me Elder Sa. Bu Yunseal placed one hand on his chest. I am Bu Yunseal. Sa Wu raised his hand, interrupting. No. Bu Yunseal's expression was a little worried. You are just number 1 trainee. Sa Wu pointed 2 fingers towards Bu Yunseal. No need for lengthy explanations, let's start right away. Right then, 2 beams of light suddenly struck Bu Yunseal's eyes, causing them to widen. His eyes glazed over, turned black, and stared wide. Gradually, Bu Yunseal's eyes turned completely black. All around Bu Yunseal was only darkness. He stood there confused, unable to see anything. In the midst of his confusion, a voice spoke, "Don't worry," helping to calm Bu Yunseal's mind. Sa Wu now began to guide Bu Yunseal bit by bit. I've only temporarily sealed your sight with the secret technique of this sect. This is a necessary procedure to learn the basic martial arts of this sect, called the Way of the Beast. Bu Yunseal heard this and asked back, a little confused, the Way of the Beast. Sa Wu saw the confusion in Bu Yunseal's words and immediately explained, it not only maximizes all of your senses, but also helps you gain reflexes like a wild animal. Sa Wu further explained to Bu Yunseal, the pinnacle of this sect's martial arts, unlike other progressive martial arts, will change in myriad ways depending on the enlightenment of the successor. Bu Yunseal became even more panicked when he heard this, so even the basic Way of the Beast is difficult, no less than mastering another martial art. The more Bu Yunseal listened, the more his eyes revealed extreme confusion. Sa Wu kept rambling, therefore, until now, fewer and fewer people try to learn it. Sa Wu's body now emitted a strange light, so bright that it made Bu Yunseal turn away. Sa Wu continued to say to Bu Yunseal, but if you can comprehend it. A white tiger flashed brightly. Sa Wu flashed an unusual light, and said loudly to Bu Yunseal, you will gain the senses of a true wild animal. Sa Wu now smiled slightly at Bu Yunseal, but usually, they die before they even get there. Sa Wu stepped closer to where Bu Yunseal was standing. Sa Wu stood in front of Bu Yunseal like a hero silhouetted against the light. In about half an hour, you'll get used to not seeing anything. Bu Yunseal was speechless, as if frozen. The fear reached its peak when Sa Wu approached right next to Bu Yunseal. Then I'll be back. A strong gust of wind blew across this simple thatched house. Bu Yunseal had gradually adapted to not being able to see, still a bit awkward, but somewhat better. They say that when you lose your sight, the other senses become more acute, but that doesn't seem to be entirely true. Suddenly, Bu Yunseal remembered what Sa Wu had told him. Usually, it takes half an hour to adapt. Bu Yunseal moved his eyes around, mentally resolving, too slow, I have to get familiar quickly. Thinking this, Bu Yunseal quickly lay down prone, then stood up to try to feel everything, then continued to kneel and crawl on the ground. Suddenly, someone ambushed Bu Yunseal, piercing through his chest. In this place, countless martial artists aimed to become the 10 demon successors, always lurking around each other, if he were attacked in this state. Then Bu Yunseal felt someone with a weapon raising it to attack him from behind. Bu Yunseal, according to his instinct, quickly turned around. Immediately after, Bu Yunseal was knocked far away, his body completely flew into the air. Bu Yunseal landed painfully, so that's it, when you lose your sight, the important thing is balance. The sky was now dark, and the stars were crowded together, shining high above. Uncle Sa Wu took a long nap and then woke up, yawning several times as he walked outside. He must be staggering around, lost right now. But contrary to Sa Wu's expectations, Bu Yunseal was already able to move back and forth skillfully, causing Sa Wu to hum in surprise. Sa Wu looked at Bu Yunseal, his face full of thought. Interesting, usually, people would sit still, waiting for their senses to return. Sa Wu observed Bu Yunseal's actions, constantly evaluating him, but this guy imagines imaginary enemies to keep moving. Bu Yunseal stomped his foot hard on the ground. Perhaps that's why he now moved so skillfully. In just 2 steps, he had moved very far. One hand of Bu Yunseal clung to a rock, one foot kicking forward. Bu Yunseal landed on the ground, his body constantly radiating his own aura. He was now adapting faster. Seeing this, Sa Wu happily smiled contentedly. Okay, it seems you're used to it, well then, now. Sa Wu unceremoniously drew his sword from behind his back and said loudly to Bu Yunseal, try to dodge my sword. Sa Wu attacked without holding back. The entire forest was silent, with only the sound of the sword colliding with the air constantly ringing out. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Bu Yunseal was put through so much hardship that he was in terrible condition. He fell hard into a puddle of rainwater. The rain grew heavier. Sa Wu was still very calm, holding his sword slung over his shoulder, smiling at Bu Yunseal in front of him. Bu Yunseal at this time had not one piece of intact clothing. It seemed like it would end here, but no. Sa Wu once again rushed towards Bu Yunseal with great speed. Bu Yunseal was completely unable to block it, taking Sa Wu's blow directly in the stomach. Sa Wu wiped the rain off his face, staring down at Bu Yunseal in front of him. Today is the 3rd day, shouldn't he be suspicious of this training method by now, yet he just silently takes the blows. Under the rain, Bu Yunseal breathed exhaustedly, but he still tried to force himself to stand up, supporting himself with his sword, without complaining. Seeing Bu Yunseal like this, Sa Wu couldn't hide his curiosity and asked, why don't you ask anything, for example, how to dodge or a special technique? Bu Yunseal widened his eyes, looking surprised, as if he couldn't believe it. Then, Bu Yunseal tried to maintain his balance, his voice coldly continuing Sa Wu's words, you said the essence of the nightshade is an enlightenment, so I think your every action has a reason. Sa Wu heard this answer and was a bit surprised. He frowned, looking down at Bu Yunseal. Then, Sa Wu closed his eyes and smiled at Bu Yunseal. That's right, you're right. As soon as he finished speaking, Sa Wu held the sword tightly in his hand and quickly rushed towards Bu Yunseal. Then let's continue. Bu Yunseal remained calm, standing there without flinching. Bu Yunseal began to close his eyes and feel everything around him. He clearly felt Sa Wu's movement. He realized something in astonishment. I feel it. In just 3 days, Bu Yunseal had felt Sa Wu's movement. Bu Yunseal now began to feel Sa Wu's actions and attacking techniques. I don't see it anymore, the path of the sword, but I can only see it, not avoid it. Bu Yunseal lifted the sword in his hand. If so. He blocked Sa Wu's sword strike. The two swords clashed. The two faced each other directly without any hesitation. The two swords clashed, sparking. Bu Yunseal had blocked the attack. He used all his strength, gritting his teeth to resist the attack. Even Sa Wu, a veteran of many years, had to be amazed at Bu Yunseal's quick learning. Sa Wu exhaled silently. He wondered in his head. He just blocked the silent sword move. After the rain, the sky cleared, and the sun began to emerge from behind the dark clouds. Sa Wu wondered. Only after 3 days. At this time, Bu Yunseal was knocked back far away, dragging a long, sparking sword trail. Bu Yunseal sat tiredly on the ground, looking up at the sky blankly. But even blocking is still difficult. While thinking, a tube of water was thrown onto Bu Yunseal's stomach. Here, drink. Bu Yunseal took the tube of water, starting to grope it. Thank you, sir. Immediately after, Bu Yunseal drank all of the bamboo water. Sa Wu just stood there looking and saying nothing. After drinking all, Bu Yunseal suddenly realized what the content was. This isn't water. His whole body suddenly overflowed with energy, as if the lost blood had been restored. This is. Sa Wu's eyes lit up as he looked at the water jug that Bu Yunseal was holding. This is the supreme spirit water that I have kept my whole life, but I don't regret it at all. Sa Wu smiled contentedly and happily at this moment, because I have waited my whole life to meet the #1 genius in the world. The rain was falling incessantly, pouring down on the roof. The attacks kept coming at Bu Yunseal, who wearily blocked them. But Sa Wu kept charging forward to attack Bu Yunseal, who didn't dodge and directly faced Sa Wu. Sa Wu smiled with a hint of satisfaction when he saw that expression. Sa Wu swung his sword across Bu Yunseal's face and shouted, once again, take this move. Bu Yunseal was stunned to hear that. Sa Wu unleashed an extremely powerful sword strike. Bu Yunseal dodged to the side, avoiding the attack. Sa Wu quickly moved behind Bu Yunseal. Not yet. Bu Yunseal's expression was strangely fearful. Bu Yunseal recognized Sa Wu's voice from behind and glanced back, his eyes filled with fear. Immediately, Bu Yunseal used his sword to attack behind him, surprising Sa Wu. Bu Yunseal didn't feel any response from the other person and was immediately confused. Isn't he attacking anymore? Seeing Bu Yunseal's expression, Sa Wu couldn't help but laugh loudly. I didn't expect the weapon I've been looking for to be right in front of me. A small light flew into Bu Yunseal's eyes, startling him. Bu Yunseal suddenly realized about his eyes. I can see again. He immediately looked at his hands. Seeing this, Sa Wu immediately called out, Bu Yunseal. Sa Wu walked over, smiling, and patted Bu Yunseal on the shoulder. Forget about things like the demonic disciple, become an official disciple of my sect. Bu Yunseal was stunned, unable to believe his ears. Bu Yunseal looked up at Sa Wu. Seeing his face like that, Sa Wu said loudly, that's right, in 10 years, I will forge you into the top martial artist in the demonic path. Bu Yunseal lowered his head, thinking to himself, become the top martial artist in the demonic path. Considering what I've witnessed so far, this offer is definitely not false, but, thinking about what had happened, the things he had to face. The murderer who killed my grandfather is definitely a master with an extremely distant martial arts realm. In that situation, just being satisfied with the martial arts of the Nong sect is not enough. Bu Yunseal pursed his lips, beginning to think about everything. Then he looked up at Sa Wu with a determined look. I will become the demonic disciple. Sa Wu's eyes revealed a look of bewilderment when he heard Bu Yunseal say that. Sa Wu stared blankly, taking a breath. If it's to comprehend all the martial arts of the 10 great demonic paths, then forget it, even a great grandmaster like the heavenly demon emperor couldn't do it. Then Sa Wu began to tell about the people who had studied before, because each martial art pursues a different body shape and fortune. Even a genius can only learn 2 or 3 at most. The shortest path to becoming the #1 martial artist in the demonic path is to devote all your energy to a single martial art. Bu Yunseal clasped his hands in front of his chest and lowered his eyes respectfully, saying, please forgive me. Seeing this, Sa Wu lowered his eyes to look at Bu Yunseal, his face not revealing any emotion. He thought to himself, he's not planning to change his decision. Thinking this, Sa Wu began to speak to Bu Yunseal. But then he stopped. Sa Wu turned his back. Alright, then from now on, learn a different martial art. These words made Bu Yunseal stunned for a few seconds. Bu Yunseal was somewhat worried and confused, saying back to Sa Wu, but I've only learned the basic martial arts of the Nong sect. Sa Wu didn't look at him, only leisurely replied, the martial arts of this sect are not passed down through oral formulas or theories. Moreover, Sa Wu turned around to look at Bu Yunseal with a glint in his eyes, then quickly attacked. Bu Yunseal reflexively raised his sword to block the attack in his own astonishment. Seeing this, Sa Wu turned around and smiled a very bright smile at Bu Yunseal. You have grasped the beast path of this sect. Then, Sa Wu put his sword back into its sheath. Bu Yunseal remembered every action of Sa Wu and suddenly understood, so the sword moves he used on me all this time were. Bu Yunseal kept thinking about the sword strikes Sa Wu had just made, the moves of the beast path. Then Bu Yunseal bowed respectfully, clasping his hands. Thank you, elder. Sa Wu clasped his hands behind his back, his voice neither heavy nor light. No need to thank me, as I said, I'm just following the orders of the demonic palace. Bu Yunseal remembered the water jug that Sa Wu had given him, but you gave me the elixirs. I will never forget this kindness in my life. Hearing this, Sa Wu bluntly said, without any hesitation, forget it. Bu Yunseal couldn't believe his ears when he heard these words. He was extremely shocked. Sa Wu said to Bu Yunseal in a serious tone, Murim is like that, kindness or resentment, if you can forget them, it's best to forget them. Hearing this, Bu Yunseal's expression sank. He didn't say anything else, his eyes just staring at the ground. Bu Yunseal looked out at the distant mountain, then. Bu Yunseal knelt down and respectfully kowtowed to Sa Wu, I bid you farewell. The sky was clear and the white clouds were slowly drifting by. After bowing to express his gratitude, Bu Yunseal turned and left. Sa Wu just stood there, watching Bu Yunseal's receding back. Sa Wu stood in the empty forest, looking in the direction that Bu Yunseal had left. He could only laugh. I can't believe that a hidden dragon like this would appear here. Bu Yunseal continued to walk through the forest. As he walked, he observed his surroundings. On this hell island, a rain of blood will definitely rise. Bu Yunseal raised his head to look at the surrounding scenery. Perhaps because I have learned the beast path, I can feel too many things. Even when I'm not doing anything, I feel tired. Bu Yunseal looked at these things and began to analyze them. Like this, I can't rest properly, I have to learn how to adjust. Bu Yunseal clenched his fist, feeling everything with his senses. Normally, he limits his senses to the lowest level. Suddenly, a light flashed from a dewdrop on a leaf. The dewdrop slowly fell, the puddle of water below, as if blocking the flowing water. Bu Yunseal's eyes suddenly flashed, as if he had understood something. Bu Yunseal stood still, looking up at the sky. This should be enough. Bu Yunseal took out the map and looked at it in his hand. The next thing to do is. Bu Yunseal put his hand to his lips and began to contemplate what was on the map. there's no way the demonic palace is just letting people practice forever in Hell Island, maybe there isn't much time left, if so, then. After thinking for a moment, Bu Yunseal put the map back in his possession, there's no other choice. Bu Yunseal recalled the events of that year in the past, the peerless Grandmaster who was once on par with the heavenly demon emperor 700 years ago. Flower Rain the sword emperor Tich Hoa Van appeared, raising his sword high with one hand, facing everything. The only way is to go to the strongest sect in the 10 great demonic paths that he founded. The morning at Flower Rain Sword Sect, the sun is gradually rising, the clouds are gradually opening the way for the sun to rise. Bu Yunseal walked to the front of the great gate of Flower Rain Sword Sect. He stood in front of the door, constantly thinking, compared to the martial arts school of Nong Dissect, this is truly a magnificent palace. At this moment, Bu Yunseal didn't hesitate to knock on the door twice. The person inside heard this and grunted. Immediately, a tall, large man came out to open the door. At this hour, we have a guest, who are you? When he saw the person in front of him, the young man was immediately startled. You are. Without letting the other person think further, Bu Yunseal bowed and clasped his hands in front of the other person. I've come to learn the martial arts of Flower Rain Sword, he thought to himself. This person turns out to be a master of Flower Rain Sword Sect. This person then looked down. Then the other person beckoned. Follow me. Bu Yunseal heard this and looked up. The person led Bu Yunseal inside, saying as they walked, the swordplay of our sect is the most vast demonic path martial art, it will devour your time. The person began to give Bu Yunseal a general introduction. Therefore, those who came before have already completed this beginner class and moved on to the intermediate class. What reason do you have for coming here after half a month has passed? Then, Bu Yunseal continued to follow behind the other person. During the past half month, I learned martial arts at Nong Dissect. The person in front began to ask, you said Nong Dissect, could it be that you learned the beast arts? Bu Yunseal heard this and looked up. That's right, the other person thought to himself, I know this guy is talented, but no matter what, it's impossible to learn the beast path in 15 days. The person closed his eyes and composed himself. Perhaps S.A. Wu's friend found it troublesome, so he sent the general here. There's no other way. He had only thought this, but S.A. Wu said irritably, what about me? The young man pointed at himself. I am Jean Gak, I'm in charge of the beginner class, call me instructor, Flower Rain Sword Sect, beginner class instructor Jean Gak. Then the other person asked Bu Yunseal, do you really intend to learn Flower Rain Sword? It's still not too late to switch to another sect, Bu Yunseal said with a serious expression, thank you for your concern. Bu Yunseal faced Jean Gak directly, but I will learn the sword techniques of Flower Rain Sword Sect. The young man raised his foot high, okay, if that's the case. Then the young man stomped his foot hard on the ground, creating a very strong surge of energy. A scroll of paper fell from above behind the young man. Here, this is the initial moves and methods of using the Flower Rain 13 forms, take a look and cultivate from here. Bu Yunseal looked at the words on the painting. Bu Yunseal was silent, his eyes glazed over, his body completely stiff. What? Bu Yunseal pointed at the painting and asked the person in front of him, what is that used for? The young man heard this and frowned, asking in a cold voice, what are you saying, can't you even read a secret sword manual? Bu Yunseal heard this and immediately replied, I don't know. These words stunned the young man for a moment. Bu Yunseal continued to speak in a slightly worried tone, before coming here, I've never practiced swordsmanship before. The young man heard this and was stunned, completely unable to believe his ears. Jean Gak asked in surprise, so, you mean you've never learned any martial arts? Bu Yunseal scratched his head and replied, that's right. Jean Gak then suddenly remembered, that's right, his resume only said he was an embalmer. In the second trial, he didn't use any sword moves. But he can't even read a basic sword manual. But if you think about it another way, when facing the second trial, he showed keen reflexes and observation skills. When choosing the lines of text, he revealed clear eyesight, seeing through everything. In a state like a blank sheet of paper, he has already reached that level. If he is properly guided, who knows? After thinking it over, Jean Gak turned back and asked Yunseal, you can't read the sword manual, but you can read words, right? Try reading this. Yunseal listened and read, relax the whole body, supple like a flowing stream. Jean Gak also explained to him in detail, first you have to relax your whole body, which means when executing the sword technique. Need to let the body completely relax, move softly, especially must let go of the strength in the abdomen and waist. Yunseal heard that, immediately quickly bent down like an old man, is that right? Seeing this scene, Jean Gak couldn't help but open his mouth, oh my god, then secretly sighed, didn't expect that in the place to select the successor of the 10 demons, they would have to start from the basics like this. But Jean Gak quickly approached and adjusted Yunseal's posture. First, stand up straight, you need to control your mind and relax. When your body is tense, the strength will be concentrated in your abdomen, and when your abdomen is tense, your whole body will become rigid, and be supple like a flowing stream. Very quickly, Yunseal got into the correct posture and started practicing the forms. Seeing this, Jean Gak opened his mouth in an O shape again, immediately adjusted his chest to the correct posture, and understood as soon as he heard it. Then he also did not forget to praise Yunseal in his bewilderment. That's right, just do it like that, now I will teach you the 13 styles of flower dance. After that time, Jean Gak meticulously taught Yunseal. Yunseal also diligently trained according to Jean Gak's words. Even if he sweated buckets, he wouldn't give up. Jean Gak also did not forget the words of praise to encourage him. Gradually, Yunseal's sword strokes gradually became perfect. The graceful sword stroke, along with his sharp face, surprised Jean Gak one surprise to another. Indeed, this boy has great potential. After a period of diligent practice, Jean Gak told Yunseal, now imagine an enemy in front of you and execute the 13 styles of flower dance. Yunseal heard this and didn't quite understand, the enemy right in front. Jean Gak quickly explained to him, that's right, this is the test for you to enter the intermediate martial arts hall, you must execute as if there is a real enemy standing in front of you, only then will I see the sword intent in your moves. Hearing this, Yunseal was silent and thought to himself, a test, the opportunity came sooner than I thought, I must seize it well. Then he immediately stood in a fighting stance, starting to use his imagination to draw an imaginary enemy, the one he had to overcome. Quickly relying on his subconscious, a black figure appeared before his eyes. Yunseal's eyes immediately sharpened, and in an instant he drew his sword. Aiming straight at the opponent, he then quickly launched the 13 styles of flower dance, first style returning wind without measure. Jean Gak stood outside his subconscious. Seeing him launch the move so powerfully, he was also surprised. Immediately after that, Yunseal continued to launch the move, 3 styles of flower dance, third style flowing clouds and mist. Jean Gak was completely stunned at this moment. Is that the 13 styles of flower dance? Flowing clouds and mist is originally a soft and flexible sword move, which must be executed gently, gracefully like drifting clouds and spreading mist. But the flowing clouds and mist that this boy executes contains a sharp murderous aura. Jean Gak secretly judged, could it be that he deliberately changed the move, the freedom to change the sword moves of a sword art passed down through generations, only outstanding grandmasters can do. Moreover, the sword move carries a sharp murderous aura as if dealing with an enemy who killed his parents or master. The swordplay of the sect is considered the orthodox path and the demonic path. What is the secret behind such cruel moves? But even Yunseal himself was no less bewildered after launching the move. This felt like his hands naturally changed the sword path. He wondered if it was because the more he executed the 13 styles of flower dance with the way of the beast, the more obvious the feeling of the way of the beast became. Do the feeling of the way of the beast and the sword path of the flower dance sword harmonize with each other? But if I put the instinct of the way of the beast into the sword path of the flower dance sword, I will be eliminated. Changing the sword moves passed down through generations is unacceptable. At this moment, suddenly Yunseal's eyes flashed with murderous intent again. He stared at the black shadow he created with hatred. That person, the murderer who killed grandfather. At this moment, his eyes became dull, as if he had been drawn into his own imagination. He gritted his teeth, jumped up, dashed towards the opponent, 13 forms of flower rain, 7th form 4 turns. Charging towards the opponent, 13 styles of flower dance, 7th style flipping the 4 Cs, but then he quickly realized. Too fast. Faster than any opponent I've ever met. The opponent also quickly swung his sword towards him. He barely avoided a sword slash, he can't give him a chance to escape. Immediately after that, Yunseal firmly grasped the sword in his hand, concentrating all the remaining moves, all at once. But the opponent quickly struck him a fatal blow. Even he himself could not react in time. Only saw the shadows of his 2 arms falling off, accompanied by the mournful cries of the cuckoo. But luckily, it was all just an illusion. Yunseal escaped from his imaginary world, drenched in sweat. His hands trembled so much that he couldn't hold the sword firmly. Jean Gak, seeing this, guessed the result, he had finally lost. However, he then smiled with satisfaction, but then he told Yunseal that he passed. Yunseal, hearing this, hadn't even had time to react when Jean Gak continued, the test in the beginner's class is to assess whether you have mastered the basic swordsmanship, and whether you can execute the Hoa Vu Thap Tam Tuk in actual combat or not. And you have excellently completed both of those things. Then Jean Gak took the sword. and returned it to Yunseal. He also didn't forget to praise him. Your Hoa Vu Thap Tam Tuk is really impressive, you can advance to the intermediate class. Hearing this, Yunseal felt extremely grateful. The head instructor taught someone who knew absolutely nothing about swordsmanship. It must have been very troublesome, yet he patiently guided him bit by bit. Thinking this, Yunseal immediately bowed to Jean Gak. Thank you for your time. Jean Gak also reminded him, from now on, strive to improve even more. Suddenly, his voice lowered, but, your sword has too much killing intent, be careful, or it will devour you. Yunseal seemed to realize this as well. He bowed to Jean Gak again and left. Jean Gak then understood, now I understand, he has mastered the wild beast path in just half a month. Perhaps because his speed of comprehension is too fast, so. The time to advance to the Intermediate Martial Arts Center is faster than expected. Initially, he was worried, not knowing if he would be strong enough to pass, but now he can confirm it. Even the instructor of the intermediate class, as Jean Gak was pondering. Yunseal had arrived at the intermediate class. As soon as he opened the door, a sharp voice rang out, I don't know who you are, but this place is enough for you, leave. The one who spoke was Tien Van Quang, the head instructor of the Hoa Vu Sword Sex Intermediate Martial Arts Center. Jean Gak also affirmed confidently, in the end, he will be subdued by Byuk Yunseal. At the intermediate class at this time, Yunseal was preparing to demonstrate his skills. He stood there with an extremely calm attitude. Before his fearless demeanor, Van Quang paid attention. He gritted his teeth tightly and had contempt for him. It seems you just passed the beginner's class. If it takes more than 20 days to learn the Hoa Vu Thap Tam Tuk, with that talent, it's just a waste of time here. Yunseal did not waver but gently bowed. I was late because I was in Nongda Kak for half a month before. Before his explanation, he pondered a bit. So, the learning in the beginner's class was not delayed, right? Nongda Kak, is that the one who learned the Thursday and ran away? Van Quang did not make it difficult for Yunseal anymore and agreed, okay, you have passed the beginner's class, sit down, I don't know how long you can keep up. He didn't waste much time and immediately got into the lecture. Hoa Vu Bich Loi sword is a swordsmanship formed from extremely fast moves. If you are not proficient, you will harm yourself. Like Hoa Vu Thap Tam Tuk, it is a difficult move to use in actual combat. Although there are many dangerous things to note, Van Quang did not deny its necessity. However, it is ultimately just a basic part of sword learning. That's why this time will not be about winning or losing, but about seeing how well you use the sword calamity. As soon as he finished speaking, he made a request, Byuk Han Sung, step out and designate an opponent for the martial arts competition. Hearing this, he smiled slyly, can I designate anyone? He confirmed, that's right. Han Sung immediately stood up and pointed, then I choose him. And the person he chose was none other than Yunseal. Seeing this, Van Quang hesitated, that guy, he repeated right away, clearly, the person who just said could designate anyone. The veins on Van Quang's face bulged, showing his displeasure. What kind of sword fighting is that naked guy against someone who just passed the beginner's class? Choose someone else. Unexpectedly, Yunseal didn't mind and said, I accept. Van Quang couldn't help but be surprised. What did you say? He stood up and said, I will compete. He also expressed his desire to learn more. I learned swordsmanship from Instructor Chan of the beginner's class. If I can fight with someone else, I think I can comprehend faster. He thought to himself, with the level of just learning the beginner's class, does he intend to keep this small amount of self-esteem? Van Quang now sighed, if both of them are determined like that, then he has no reason to refuse, okay. Self-verifying martial arts is also what martial artists need. I hope you have enough strength to go to the upper class. At this time, Han Sung was looking at him with murderous eyes. Lucky, among many talents, it is difficult to stand out. If I kill that name directly, I will consolidate my position. Both of them then went into position to prepare for the martial arts competition. Suddenly there was a voice from afar, brave, but Han Sung, with a temper as fiery as ice cream, immediately swung his wooden sword down. Mere passion and impulsiveness can't survive in the Murim. Begin. As soon as the command rang out, he charged like a god towards him. Yunseal, with his agile movements, managed to evade his first attack in time. Han Sung was now increasingly excited. Not bad. He, in a frenzy, unleashed a powerful sword strike. Yunseal's hand was trembling from this fierce assault. Han Sung's face revealed an increasingly triumphant, this clumsy feeling transmitting from his fingertips. Truly a complete rookie, you clumsy thing, let me show you what the flowery dance azure lightning sword is. He, relying on his advantageous position, recklessly charged forward. The next second, Han Sung unleashed slashes as sharp as blades. Flowery dance azure lightning sword. Suddenly, he paused slightly. Han Sung couldn't gloat anymore when he saw Yunseal dodging the attacks. Bastard, he dodged all of them. His face became completely bewildered. This guy. Wunwang, observing from the outside, didn't think highly of him. Byuk Hansung's swordsmanship is worthless. Then, his gaze turned to Yunseal. On the other hand, that guy. He's not dodging based on speed but more like predicting it. Could it be he's learned the beastly way? The next second, he dismissed that thought. Impossible. At the dissect, the beastly way is just fundamental, but in reality, it's the ultimate technique that only seasoned veterans with hundreds of battles under their belts can master. Even the most unparalleled genius couldn't master it in half a month. No matter how he thought about it, he still considered it impossible. Suddenly, Wunwang stomped his foot hard on the ground. He then announced an important point to them. If you only dodge, it won't count. I've made it clear. This martial arts competition is to see swordsmanship, not to measure strength or reflexes. Hearing that, Yunseal immediately stopped. He didn't waste much time getting into a fighting stance. Yunseal's eyes were a bit hazy at this moment. But just the next second, he exploded and unleashed a fiery red sword strike. The other disciples, witnessing this, couldn't help but be stunned. That's the flowery dance 13 forms. They had no difficulty recognizing the technique he was using. Han Sung was now very excited about his attack. Is this the trick of flowery dance 13 forms? Another one of the disciples realized, this has something different. Han Ton didn't shed a tear until he saw the coffin, so he's still going on really strong. At this level I can even close my eyes and block. Who would have guessed that in an instant the sword slashed past him? He immediately realized something was wrong. What is this? Is this what you call the flowery dance 13 forms? At this moment, Yunseal's strike after strike was just like fireworks. Han Sung started to doubt the meaning of life. Is this guy intentionally hiding his strength and changing the flowery dance 13 forms to mock me? In order to get in the teacher's good graces and go up to the senior class, how dare you? He decided to play it through with him. Han Sung clenched his teeth tightly. He was determined to not let Yunseal have his wish. The one going to senior class will be Mishura swordsmanship. Destroyer of blood. The whole room now lit up with such powerful attacks. Suddenly, Wunwang stomped his foot hard on the ground. His eyes were suddenly wide open in shock. But that kid can still keep his balance and doesn't sway in this situation. His suspicions of Yunseal grew larger. Could this guy have really practiced the beastly way? Han Ton was still fighting fiercely and didn't give up. This jerk is really good at dodging. But this time is the end. He was now determined to party and raise the roof. Wunwang was also surprised at his willingness to play around. That trick flashed and Han Sung disappeared into midair. At this moment he looks no different than a moth heading towards the flame. Blood be protecting the moon. Yunseal's sword-holding hand moved in the blink of an eye. And so a clash as tense as a stretched string took place. The other disciples were very nervous waiting to see the results. Van Kwang stood frozen for 5 seconds, like a man who had lost his soul. Yet, Yunseal had now truly struck at his vital point, the 13th form of Hoa Vu, limitless infinity. Han Sung was now injured to the point of vomiting blood. He had completely lost and collapsed onto the ground. Yunseal turned his head and looked at Han Sung with a calm expression. The other disciples were frozen stiff at the scene, stammering, unable to speak a word. Is he dead? After knocking down Han Sung, Yunseal sheathed his sword. Meanwhile, he was still lying motionless on the floor. Van Kwang immediately stepped forward and realized the situation was not good. He's dead. He was hit directly in a fatal pressure point, a complete strike on the central pressure point. He then immediately asked, "Are you a disciple of Nong dissect?" Yunseal denied, "No." Van Kwang continued to wonder, "So you mastered the way of the beast in half a month?" He honestly shared, "I've only learned the basics." Hearing this, he found it extremely laughable. The basics, is Nong dissect teaching people to lie these days? Before he could finish speaking, Van Kwang requested, "Enough with the excuses, get rid of this immediately." The other disciples were in a state of extreme panic, daring to kill someone in a normal sparring match. How absurd, shouldn't he be punished? Van Kwang immediately activated his murderous aura. Don't think that just because this place is called a martial arts school, it really is a martial arts school. This place is hell. If you unleash a killing move, you must accept the possibility of being killed. On the contrary, I will restart the sparring match. Not long after, the disciples all started sparring. Some of them felt exhausted and sat down to rest for a moment. The rest still had swords stained with blood and showed no signs of stopping. They now had no boundaries and gave each other murderous glances. Van Kwang then calmly stepped forward. He pointed behind them and demanded, "You are eliminated, leave immediately and find another martial arts school." They didn't want to leave like that and said, "It's only one test, please give us another chance." He refused, "Impossible." Van Kwang was then blunt, with good foundations, passing the elementary class is normal, but to learn Hoa Vu sword, you ultimately need the aptitude of an unparalleled martial talent who overcomes limits through bone-deep hard work. The reason you failed is that you couldn't do that. After hearing clearly, they stood frozen for 5 seconds, he didn't say much more and turned around to leave. Suddenly, Yunseal slowly walked towards him. Van Kwang was a little startled by his action. Yunseal was now standing in front of him. Van Kwang then asked, "Why haven't you left?" Hearing this, he couldn't help but wonder, "Do I have to leave too?" He immediately confirmed and added, "Yes, because you won the sparring match and passed the exam, so go to the advanced class." Yunseal unhesitatingly expressed his desire, "If it's an upgrade, I'd like to stay here." Van Kwang asked in confusion, "Stay here for what?" Yunseal explained, "What I've learned is only the 13th form of Hoa Vu, I haven't learned anything in the intermediate class." The entire martial arts school now only had the two of them left. Van Kwang was very confused by his words and asked again, "You've learned the way of the beast, and you've solved the chaotic sword of the Sura sword sect, and you say you haven't learned anything." Who would have thought Yunseal would confirm again, yes. Faced with his certainty, he didn't argue anymore. "Okay, I'll teach you, it's the Hoa Vu Bich Loi sword, inherited from the Hoa Vu 13th form, but..." Van Kwang's face now darkened seriously. "I hate those who put on a show to make a strong impression. If I discover that you have learned any other sword techniques besides the Hoa Vu 13th form, I will immediately behead you," he concluded with an incredibly scary attitude. 4 days later, Van Kwang was also surprised by Yunseal. He stood in the distance, secretly observing him. This guy, after 4 days of tutoring and verification in many ways, turned out to have almost no foundation in swordsmanship. Is he really just starting to learn swordsmanship? His soft movements really made him suspicious. Van Kwang watched Yunseal very carefully. He also admired the person in him, but his persistence and determination were truly extraordinary. It was as if a person would die if they didn't practice martial arts, putting all their effort into every moment. He then smirked, "So, it's possible that he could learn the way of the beast in just half a month." In an instant, Yunseal unleashed a move that was no different from thunder, Hoa Vu Bich Loi sword, Extreme Ray Lightning Star. Suddenly, while he was enthusiastic, Van Kwang stopped him. "Enough. That's enough, it seems you have grasped the secret meaning of the Hoa Vu Bich Loi sword." Yunseal hesitated. "What, but..." Even before he finished speaking, the man stepped forward. The flowing petal azure lightning sword was originally a sword technique that interchanged swift sword stances and continuous fire senses. To execute it, one had to spin continuously, and moreover, all moves required rotating the sword around the body, making it almost unusable in actual combat. But suddenly, Yunguang hesitated slightly. "You're applying all the techniques in real combat. As if you really want to kill someone." Hearing this, he wondered, "Isn't that what sword techniques are originally created for?" Yunguang explained, "In demonic path martial arts, murderous intent is necessary, but the flowing petal sword abandons murderous intent, only to reach the highest realm." Yunguang placed a finger on his forehead. "The thoughts of killing in your mind, if not eliminated, will eventually lead you to create martial arts that harm yourself." He put his hand on his forehead and thought to himself, "He says exactly the same thing as Master Jean Gak. Not in the past, but even now, Master himself once carried a murderous sword, cutting down everything in front of him without hesitation. Because of that, his status, reputation, and martial arts fell to a lower level." Yunguang said this to advise him, "The murderous sword seems like it will bring people to a higher realm. But in reality, it is just an obstacle blocking the endless path. From now on, give up your murderous intent." Suddenly, a nostalgic voice echoed in Yunseal's mind, "So Seol, the past of those who live by the sword is full of sorrow and misfortune." He had made it clear then, so the people in Jianghu. He hated talking about his past, the words still lingered in the back of his mind. Yunseal was a little puzzled, so he asked, "Why are you telling me these things?" Yunguang then repeated once again, "I told you, even I once carried a murderous sword." Suddenly, the man became serious and asked, "What is your name?" He didn't hide anything and immediately introduced himself, "I am Bu Yunseal." At this point, Yunguang realized that he was not a stranger. "I heard that someone survived Jean Gak's hands at the second checkpoint, so it was you, Bu Yunseal." The man then frowned and said, "You have a very big problem." Hearing this, Yunseal was very curious to know, "What is it?" Yunguang bluntly remarked, "You lack too much foundation in swordsmanship. Your opponents are all geniuses who have learned martial arts since childhood. When you enter the advanced class and officially learn the flowing petal sword, the difference will be even greater. To catch up with that gap, you must quickly practice advanced martial arts and lay a solid foundation to learn the flowing petal sword. after giving the advice, the man hesitated a bit, and to compensate for that gap, "I will teach you the thunder unrivaled that I created myself." The next second, he continued about the shortcomings. "The only thing is, because of failing to practice the electric thunder unrivaled, all the nerves in my fingers are severed. It's such a dangerous sword technique, it could even cripple your hands. Not only may you not be able to step up to the advanced class, but you may even become a cripple who loses both hands. Even so, can you still accept it?" After listening to Yunguang list all the dangers, he pondered, "My hands." But the boiling determination in Yunseal strengthened him to take revenge. "Thank you very much, I can even give up my soul, no matter how dangerous it is." Yunseal can accept it. A month since mastering the electric thunder unrivaled and leaving the intermediate class. The master said it was fast, but it took longer than I thought. I've learned from basic sword techniques in the beginner class to advanced sword techniques in the intermediate class. The door is gradually opening, now is the next step. All eyes immediately turned to Bu Yunseal. He looked ahead with an emotionless face. He was motionless. Immediately after that, he thought, indeed, in the advanced class, the atmosphere is completely different. Those eyes kept poring over him. In the academies, I felt a completely different aura compared to the intermediate class. Moreover, their eyes widened and lit up. Bu Yunseal's eyebrows slightly twitched down. The eyes looking at me no longer have contempt, probably because I killed Byakunsung. He began to recall that wiping corpses was criticized, but killing people was worshipped and praised. Then, he reached out and spoke to break the tension. "You are Bu Yunseal, I've heard the story. I was about to start the class, sit down quickly." Then, he continued, "Since there is a new student, I will explain the secret technique of the flowing petal sword intent and the 7 teachings again. Strength flows through the whole body, stand upright with proper balance, chest contained, back extended at the first strike, do not overreach." Bu Yunseal read each word in the book and felt it. Indeed, these contents cannot be understood without learning advanced sword techniques in the intermediate class. "Let's stop explaining the methods here for today," then he announced, "Bu Yunseal, follow me for a moment." He was silent, saying nothing. In the end, he followed him to the deserted area. He touched the foliage. No sword wins against a sword, meaning the realm of being able to defeat someone with a sword even without a sword, in short, is the state of not being bound in the deployment of sword techniques whether you have a sword or not. Just then, the sunlight shone on the leaves that he was touching. Suddenly he executed a surprise attack on him. He changed his attitude 180 degrees. "I ask you, if you were attacked by surprise like this and your hand has no sword, how do you unleash sword techniques?" Bu Yunseal gaped at the question. He continued, "While you were in the intermediate class, the disciples here have mastered the first style of the flower dance sword and the profound dance of Wu Xian, and are now engaged in sword discussions." His tone full of warning. "If you can't understand and keep up with what I'm asking, this old man will expel you immediately. Answer carefully." Immediately afterwards, he closed his eyes tightly. "If he has no sword." Bu Yunseal opened his eyes wide. He channeled spiritual energy preparing to strike. "I will take advantage of the opponent's sword." Leaves wrapped around his arm, and he calmly dodged again, greatly surprising him. He casually stated, "That's a hasty judgment." Bu Yunseal turned his head in disbelief. It couldn't be. He had suddenly retreated. Then he continued to lunge, but he dodged again. He glanced at him, thinking to himself, "I can't predict which direction he's dodging. I don't think I can catch him," but he stood still as if waiting for him to strike again. He couldn't even keep up with the movements, and he began to stop. Right now Bu Yunseal is highly concentrated. If he can't show anything here, he can't stay in the upper class, maximizing his beast path and reading the direction of movement. He reached out his hand preparing to lunge at him, just once. His hand slowly reached towards the leaves, about to touch the foliage. When he was sent flying away by his technique, immediately, Bu Yunseal fell to the ground with a thud. He sat up in pain. He placed his hand on his shoulder and chuckled. Then he revealed while laughing, "You passed." He was immediately surprised by his words. "Passed? I clearly didn't touch it, but why?" Then he stood up. "From tomorrow you must learn the profound dance of Wu Xian, come out earlier than others, and come to the training ground to practice before the official time." Immediately afterwards, Bu Yunseal obeyed. "Yes sir." He gradually left. He looked at the foliage in his hand. They're almost all fallen. The remaining leaves are withered. He began to recall his posture from before. Even if it's a wolf cub, a wolf is still a wolf. He slightly curved his lips up. Truly something to look forward to. Dusk was gradually falling. For Bu Yunseal, the lesson for today had ended. He looked up at the sky. He could rest or train, but he'd rather go around Hell Island a bit more. He pondered, thinking about the time of the first checkpoint. he didn't know when fighting would happen here. Suddenly there were people hiding in the bushes behind him, and he seemed to sense some noise. He closed his eyes, the stranger's footsteps began to appear, 1 2. Even though Bu Yunseal couldn't see, he guessed their number, 3 4, as soon as he turned around there was a group of people, 5. Those guys began to give warnings, Bu Yunseal, you have been too aggressive since the intermediate class. You have to get rid of that, yes, you are the one who caused the death before, don't blame anyone. His voice dropped, the 5 of us were all talents called the 5 evil swords before we came here. Sooner or later you should be prepared. He looked at them with bullet-like eyes, no. Then he prepared to receive the attack of those guys, there's still one more person. Then, they snapped angrily, you bastard don't even try it. Before he could finish his sentence, he was immobilized, someone had launched a fatal blow on him. And that guy fell down. The remaining guys got scared. As they turned around, they recognized from Seo Jinha also appeared in the form of that person. He called out to him in a low voice. Bu Yunseal, then he made a request, talk to me. They couldn't help but be surprised to see Seo Jinha, from Seo Jinha, why are you suddenly here? But he gave a contemptuous look, get out, I have nothing to do with the likes of you guys. Everyone was afraid of him. Then they ran away as fast as they could, damn it, just you wait, Yunseal is still here alone. Thinking to himself that guy is really strong. He sheathed his sword inside, they're really cowards. His gaze immediately went to him. Getting straight to the point without hesitation, speak plainly, Bu Yunseal. Seo Jinha pointed his sword at him, which side do you belong to? His action made him a little bewildered. His voice slowly rose, until now you have learned the first move of the flower dance sword, the Huin Chi Vu Huin, but only when you turn it into your own move can you really say you have mastered it, now it's time to see the flower dance you created. Suddenly he called out Bu Yunseal again. Then he gave the topic, deploy Huin Chi Vu Huin once. Bu Yunseal stood on the podium with a sword in his hand. He breathed a sigh, then changed his attitude. Then start executing the move. He landed after casting the skill. Then Bu Yunseal swiped his sword in another stroke creating a wavy line. He watched just now and secretly evaluated the sword move Huin Chi Vu Huin, which was strictly forbidden and delicate, but he turned it into something full of murderous intent. Then he said in a low voice, you can go back to your seat, so the next one is Seo Jinha. He started to stand up. The two of them brushed past each other, but only Bu Yunseal looked. Suddenly his pupils contracted. Remembering Seo Jinha's savage image that day with the strong aura of color, the pupils are increasingly contracted. Right there. Seo Jinha is clear, he frantically used all his strength to execute the move. Not using Huin Chi Vu Huin but deploying moves to directly confront me, as if warning me. He couldn't help but ask, what do you mean by side, what do you mean? Hearing that, he harshly replied, don't pretend you don't know. Bu Yunseal was stunned by his words, I know that not all those gathered here came to become successors of the 10 demonic paths. He thought to himself, thinking about it, even though this is a rare opportunity to learn the martial arts of the 10 demonic paths, the selection process is ridiculously sloppy. The image of the fox sticking its head out with water dripping down, if so, this great opportunity is also. The fox collapsed and howled when bullets hit it. A trap to catch someone. Suddenly Bu Yunseal realized that there must be spies mixed in. On the contrary, Seo Jinha looked at him with a disgusted look, his expression and tone did not seem like he was lying. He sighed and then drew his sword, so you're not, damn it, I thought it would be a little interesting. Then he turned away, from now on in the dojo, know how to restrain yourself. He turned around and said in a warning tone, if you continue to be an eyesore, I will slash you too. Then Seo Jinha left, and Bu Yunseal was a little curious. Spies, so there are still many things I don't know. He recalled the image of himself blocking that move, it's no wonder, he was only focusing all his strength on learning the martial arts of the Nongda Kak and Hoa Vu Kim Mon. He looked up at the sky and thought to himself, but never mind, whether they are spies or the demonic path, they are all enemies that I have to face. It's probably about to start. Late that night, a freezing rat was gnawing on its paw, when suddenly a huge foot grabbed it. It was a black raven, flying past the upper class. He placed his hand on the table, and that concluded the entire cultivation process. He slowly continued, I think many people will find studying the methods boring. The students below listened attentively, but even masters who have experienced countless battles, still dedicate time to studying the methods of supreme martial arts. Because martial arts is not just about knowing how to do it, and just being able to do it doesn't mean you understand it. My explanation so far, I believe, will become a great advantage for you as you continue on the path of Murim. He continued, then I wish you May your martial energy flow freely. Everyone started to get confused. Why the bell, what's going on? Then, without explanation, he announced, the time has come, immediately go to the rock mountain in the center of the island. At the rock mountain on the island at that time, everyone stood solemnly below. Byuk Hansung turned and said, everyone is assembled. Bu Yunseal frowned deeply again. Hyok Ryanyoung began to speak up, then, from now on. His voice lowered as he announced, the third trial will begin. Those people huddled together and began to discuss it. The third trial, wasn't that the second trial? Bu Yunseal glanced, remembering the trial she had just overcome, the life-or-death battle she had experienced was the second trial. These guys probably don't know. The young man standing next to them said loudly, the entire cave will be sealed off soon. From now until the 10 demonic path successors are chosen, you cannot return to your lodgings, prepare your necessary luggage beforehand. Hearing this, those people immediately changed their expressions, everyone revealed a worried and uneasy look. One of them raised their hand and asked, how do you choose the 10 demonic path successors by doing this? Jean Gak continued to speak about that, but Jean Gak was interrupted by Hyok Ryanyoung, you demonic path bunch really have no sense of the situation at all. Hyok Ryanyoung stood in front of the crowd, coldly saying, kill each other. Hyok Ryanyoung's eyes turned red, until the final 10 demonic path successors are chosen, you must kill each other, understood? Hearing this, some people's eyes showed fear, while others were very calm, with expressions of satisfaction with what Hyok Ryanyoung said. Hyok Ryanyoung laughed and said to them, whether you hide, run away, or avoid fighting, it's up to you, but it won't be like that forever. Hyok Ryanyoung smiled and glanced at those people. Over time, the area you can stay in will be narrowed down, those who remain in the restricted area. Hyok Ryanyoung emphasized to the people below again, will be killed by the demon assassins. The eyes of the two demon assassins turned visibly red. Bu Yunseal frowned, feeling a source of pressure pressing down on her, the murderous aura was spreading even here. Seo Jinha's eyes darkened, clearly, those are terrifying masters. One of the people in the crowd timidly asked, attracting Hyok Ryanyoung's attention, can't we attack those demon assassins? Hyok Ryanyoung heard this question, he couldn't stop laughing, if you're a candidate for the demonic path successor, you should at least be able to ask this. Hyok Ryanyoung explained to the other person, of course you can attack and engage in combat, if you're capable enough, it's okay to kill them too. Upon hearing this, the demon assassin looked at the crowd with an even colder gaze. Hyok Ryanyoung looked at the crowd with fiery eyes, if anyone kills a demon assassin, they will immediately become the demonic path successor. Hearing this, their faces changed, and their eyes contracted. Compared to killing all the people here, taking down a demon assassin is much more difficult. Hyok Ryanyoung emphasized to the people here, remember, follow the 7 ambushes, whatever it takes. Hearing this, Bu Yunseal became even more confused. Hyok Ryanyoung clenched his fist and said in a determined voice, if you can die, then use any means or method you can, that is the path to becoming the demonic path successor. In the evening on the mountainside, the wind kept blowing in larger and larger gusts. In the darkness, a small figure was constantly moving, it was none other than Bu Yunseal, moving gracefully through the night. I have to act fast. Bu Yunseal recalled her previous actions, her eyes becoming even more determined. Over the past time, I've attracted too much attention from the disciples. Bu Yunseal thought of those hostile gazes, if I don't leave here immediately, it's very likely that I'll be attacked by those who are wary of me, like last time. Bu Yunseal ran faster and faster. First, let's get to a safe place. If there's a safest place for me, it's definitely that spot. After a long run, finally dawn broke. Bu Yunseal arrived at an abandoned house in the forest. Reaching here, Bu Yunseal stopped abruptly in front of this house. Bu Yunseal paused and observed her surroundings. The feeling under her feet was different from before. Bu Yunseal touched her hand to the ground, beginning to feel it. This is. Bu Yunseal glanced into the distance, startled, someone was coming. Bu Yunseal turned to face them, sensing 3 people rushing towards him. A person emerged from the bushes, looking panicked. Help, those guys are trying to kill me, they're chasing me. Hearing that, Bu Yunseal did not hesitate and drew out his sword from its sheath. The person was panting, their voice extremely urgent, if you save me, I'll definitely repay you. Bu Yunseal immediately became suspicious. A trap? No. Bu Yunseal remained silent, not answering. He began to observe everything. He noticed that the person in front of him was seriously injured, the wounds were real. At the same time, Bu Yunseal sensed the 3 pursuers approaching very close to their location, so the pursuers are a group of 3 together. Bu Yunseal glanced at the person in front of him. I don't want to get involved, but if my hiding place is exposed because of this guy, it'll be a hassle. The person in front, seeing Bu Yunseal's silence, became even more frightened, with tears welling up in their eyes. Bu Yunseal moved his foot to the side. A large cave appeared before their eyes. At that moment, an arm reached through, pushing aside the bushes to create an opening. The group of 3 was searching for someone. Where is he? There's no way he could have escaped that fast. Bu Yunseal looked up from the ground with a calm expression, while the other person was so scared that they tried their best to avoid making noise. After searching for a long time without finding him, the 3 became annoyed. One of them spat, "Damn it, I'm definitely going to kill him." The leader turned around, pointing ahead. "He couldn't have gone far, let's move." With that, the 3 dashed off like lightning, leaving behind a quiet clearing, devoid of any presence. Seeing that it was safe, Bu Yunseal began to emerge from the ground. Seeing Bu Yunseal emerge safely, the other person also began to climb out, letting out a long sigh. Phew. Bu Yunseal brushed the dust off his clothes. Just then, the other person spoke up. "I survived thanks to you, thank you so much." The person began to try and persuade Bu Yunseal. "If it weren't for you, I would have." Bu Yunseal ignored what the person said, pondering to himself, "That lake isn't just for hiding, old Ta really did prepare something for me." Bu Yunseal crouched down and began to examine things. While underground, I felt my beast path senses expanding. Bu Yunseal sensed the footsteps of those people, the sound of them stomping heavily on the ground. At the same time, he sensed all of their moves, the sound of executing sword techniques. Through the vibrations, the situation was conveyed as clearly as if he were seeing it with his own eyes. Bu Yunseal clearly sensed everything around him. Bu Yunseal closed his eyes and began to ponder. The beast path relies on vibrations. Perhaps old Ta wanted to teach me this. Bu Yunseal seemed to realize something, but then paused. He glanced at the person in front of him. Bu Yunseal glanced, assessing the other person from head to toe. The other person, seeing this, stepped forward a few paces. "Oh, right." The person introduced himself. "I'm Jiam Qiaoliang from the Blood Clan, may I know your name?" Hearing this, Bu Yunseal silently turned and left. Jiam Qiaoliang, seeing this, quickly stopped him. "Hey, let's go together." Jiam Qiaoliang approached and said sincerely, "As soon as the 3rd trial began, I fled into the forest. People have been constantly attacking and chasing me, it's really scary." Jiam Qiaoliang, seeing that Bu Yunseal didn't answer, continued, "If you don't mind, could I travel with you? You hid me just now, and for some reason, I feel like I can trust you." Bu Yunseal, hearing this, slightly turned his head and glanced. Then, without hesitation, he turned his head away. Jiam Qiaoliang, seeing that Bu Yunseal didn't answer, assumed it was consent and ran up. "I'll take that as a yes." Suddenly, Jiam Qiaoliang fell silent and looked up, a sly look on his face. The distant mountain had clouds constantly drifting over its peak. Bu Yunseal braced his hand against the ground and began to sense every movement. After sensing, Bu Yunseal looked up. "We need to find another route, there's fighting going on right ahead." Jiam Qiaoliang, hearing this, his eyes lit up. "Wow, you can sense the vibrations too, that's amazing, please teach me." In the face of those flattering words, Bu Yunseal didn't answer, only turned and left. Jiam Qiaoliang silently watched him go, a voice emitting, "Just you wait, even if I have to sell my soul." This voice kept echoing in Bu Yunseal's head. "I will definitely avenge you." At this moment, Bu Yunseal's mind was only filled with revenge. The image of Janyang with empty eye sockets further haunted Bu Yunseal. Bu Yunseal's face darkened. "I can sense this familiar hatred." Jiam Qiaoliang, behind him, was confused, not understanding what was happening. "Hey, what's wrong all of a sudden?" Bu Yunseal walked straight ahead. "The plan has changed, I'm going to join that battle." Hearing this, Jiam Qiaoliang was immediately startled. "What?" Bu Yunseal began to look for a hiding place. At this moment, Jiam Qiaoliang looked up but didn't notice a person sitting on a branch. Just as they moved without any precautions, the person above swooped down like lightning, intending to ambush Bu Yunseal, but unfortunately, Bu Yunseal quickly drew his sword and blocked the attack. The masked person was extremely panicked. "How could you break the forbidden art of invisibility? Are you also from an assassin's background?" Bu Yunseal didn't respond, his sharp eyes speaking for him, quickly swinging his sword and rushing forward. His eyes were extremely cold, and with a single stroke of his sword, he swiftly dealt with the enemy. The enemy's body was split in two on the ground. Seeing this, Bu Yunseal only glanced at his assassin's hidden skill. Then, Bu Yunseal turned away and looked at him with disdain. If it weren't for the beast path, it would have been quite troublesome. Bu Yunseal sheathed his sword with a grim look. Jiam Qiaoliang, behind him, screamed in fear, "Blood!" Bu Yunseal stopped his skill and sensed that there was still fighting in the distance. One of them had taken down 3 people, and 2 others were ambushing in the trees. Bu Yunseal thought to himself, if I help him deal with those assassins. Bu Yunseal looked at the scene before him and wondered, then maybe I'll get a sense of the feeling of completing revenge. The person in front of him was empty-handed, his face covered in blood. It's over, let's quickly finish this and leave. The 2 masked men looked at each other and began to discuss, as a sign of respect, we will let you die neatly in one move for the last time. The other person heard this, confused. Before he could react, Bu Yunseal dashed toward him like lightning. Bu Yunseal attacked relentlessly, but he was still able to defend. Utterly confused, what is this, who is this guy, are there still remnants left? At this moment, another one of his teammates snorted coldly and attacked from behind, but Bu Yunseal noticed it with a glance. That person held his sword and swung it down, killing the rest is all that's left to do, but Bu Yunseal, thanks to his small frame, quickly dodged the attack. That person saw his teammates slashing, and could only stare. Immediately afterwards, a group rushed in from all sides, surrounding Bu Yunseal, but he easily dodged and counterattacked. Bu Yunseal was a little worried, but he was still able to take his sword and rush into battle. With just one stroke of his sword, Bu Yunseal sent 2 people to meet the King of Hell. One of the group saw that the situation was not good and immediately rushed forward to block Bu Yunseal's attack. He was now standing against the light, his whole body illuminated. The man shouted loudly, die. A sword stroke cut across, causing blood to splatter on Bu Yunseal's face. Someone from behind helped Bu Yunseal, and the other man collapsed in the direction he was standing. Once again, that body was slashed by a sword, and blood flowed out continuously. When the sword stroke ended, it was also when Bu Yunseal saw the whole body of that person. One side of that person's face was covered in blood, and his eyes were extremely fierce. Then that person stood up straight and laughed maniacally. Then this man collapsed. Revenge has been accomplished. Bu Yunseal was now standing in front of a pile of corpses lying scattered on the grass. From the nearby bushes, GM Qiaoliang raised his head. Is it really over? Bu Yunseal remained silent, not answering. He walked silently to the corpse of a person lying nearby. GM Qiaoliang put his hands behind his back. Yunseal, your strength is truly formidable, but... GM Qiaoliang raised his knife high with a sinister look. Even so, you absolutely can't let your guard down. Bu Yunseal just sat there, doing nothing. The knife in GM Qiaoliang's hand came down, but it was quickly blocked by a sword. Bu Yunseal used the sword in his hand to block GM Qiaoliang's attack. GM Qiaoliang's eyes widened in surprise. How is this possible? Bu Yunseal angrily knocked GM Qiaoliang away. It's all your fault. Bu Yunseal, with murderous eyes, walked towards Bu Yunseal. Because of you, I couldn't ask him the last question. GM Qiaoliang was terrified. What are you talking about? Besides, since when did you find out? Bu Yunseal replied calmly, from the beginning. GM Qiaoliang heard this, as if he couldn't believe his ears. What? Bu Yunseal began to recall their first meeting. Last time, when you hid yourself underground, I knew you were hiding a lot of hidden weapons. Bu Yunseal analyzed every detail on GM Qiaoliang's body, looking at the rigid movement of your waist, as if there's something attached to your hip. It's not hard to notice. Bu Yunseal began to analyze every expression of GM Qiaoliang. The reason I knew your identity and still let you stay by my side was just because I was curious about your habits of action. With just a glance, Bu Yunseal seemed to see through everything, observing how those who specialize in deceiving act will be quite useful for future battles. GM Qiaoliang gritted his teeth in anger. Impossible. GM Qiaoliang flew into a rage and fired all of the hidden weapons he had on him at Bu Yunseal. My acting was perfect. Bu Yunseal just stood still and leaned slightly to dodge the assassination. GM Qiaoliang bit his teeth in fear. That guy has been with him for a period of time, the more I am sure. Looking into those red eyes, GM Qiaoliang wondered, can he really predict my movements? Bu Yunseal slashed once, knocking away all the remaining hidden weapons, cutting straight into GM Qiaoliang's shoulder without him reacting. When he realized the pain, his body collapsed. Holding the sword in his hand, Bu Yunseal said in a cold voice, no matter how powerful your hidden weapons are. Bu Yunseal held the hidden weapons in his hand and said in a cold voice, once they're discovered, they're useless, right? GM Qiaoliang was so terrified that he clenched his teeth, his eyes filled with both fear and anger. In the end, GM Qiaoliang chose to try one last time, charging straight at Bu Yunseal. But Bu Yunseal's expression remained blank, showing no fear whatsoever, his face covered in blood. The two swords collided, creating a deafening sound. Bu Yunseal decisively slashed across GM Qiaoliang's body. Blood splattered from him, and everything seemed to freeze as they both remained motionless. A moment later, Yunseal coldly sheathed his sword, and at the same time, Jiam Qiaoliang behind him collapsed to the ground. He raised Jiam Qiaoliang's hidden weapons to inspect them, thinking to himself, this was not an easy battle. If I hadn't noticed he was hiding hidden weapons beforehand, it would have been very dangerous. Thinking this, Bu Yunseal slightly turned his head to look. Jiam Qiaoliang was lying motionless on the ground, his eyes still wide open. He said to himself. The image of life slowly fading away, still a face full of attachment to life, just like what I have seen so many times. The all too familiar image made Bu Yunseal decisively turn away. Then he walked in another direction, muttering to himself, but this one is different. He sat down in front of the corpse of the man who had taken revenge earlier. Bu Yunseal remembered the image of him swinging his sword, so powerfully as if resolving all the pent-up grudges. He lowered his eyes, silently wondering, what does it feel like to get revenge? If I also complete my revenge, will I be able to smile so peacefully like this? He stared at the man's smiling face, full of satisfaction. Bu Yunseal gently pursed his lips. Then he reached out and took the man's sword. Bu Yunseal, now holding two swords, finally continued his journey alone. After Bu Yunseal, an eerie voice echoed in the scene, so, you are the one. Among the corpses, a faint wisp of black gas appeared. The gas gradually condensed and darkened. It silently observed Bu Yunseal, its dark voice commenting, with only the elementary sword techniques of the Flower Rain Sword Sect, which have no practical combat experience, you want to kill an assassin of the Extreme Murder Privy Pavilion. In the black gas, an eye full of depth was revealed, scornfully saying, even if you have outstanding talent, there is no shortage of talents like that here. If you don't reach a higher level, surviving on this hell island will be extremely difficult. The next day, Bu Yunseal was running for his life. Behind him, the short-haired man shouted, chase after him, he's alone, don't let him escape. With that, he swung a whip at him. Luckily, Bu Yunseal quickly dodged it. A moment later, two more whips lashed out. One of them successfully struck him hard on the back. Bu Yunseal furrowed his brow, gritting his teeth, thinking, this guy is persistent, if I continue to fight like this, I'll only die. I have to think of a way, he thought as he continued to run. At the same time, two figures were standing on a high cliff. Hyok Ryanyang, with his hands clasped behind his back, asked, what's the situation? Jean Gak immediately reported, out of the 86 people participating in the training, only 41 have survived. He raised his hand to his chin and rubbed it, his tone seemingly calculating something, and slowly said, even though 3 days have passed, there are still 41 people. At the same time, Bu Yunseal was focusing all his energy on dealing with the 3 whip users. Hyok Ryanyang chuckled and said, but this is enough to keep those who are truly strong, perhaps it's time for them to show their true strength. Then he spoke, bring the map here. Jean Gak immediately handed the map to him, replying with a yes, sir. At the same time, on Bu Yunseal's side, the whip had wrapped tightly around the blade of his sword. The short-haired man laughed triumphantly and ordered, capture him. Unexpectedly, before he could finish his sentence, Bu Yunseal decisively released his grip on the sword hilt. A moment later, he turned and darted away. The men behind him exclaimed in surprise, he's running away again. As Bu Yunseal ran, he thought about how to deal with them. Given the characteristics of the weapons they use, fighting in a wide open space would be disadvantageous. His small figure rushed towards the sun. He quickly formed a plan in his mind, if that's the case, then first. On Hyok Ryanyang's side, he pointed at the map and ordered, seal off this area first. At the same time, Bu Yunseal was still struggling to survive. Meanwhile, he was thinking of the fastest way to cut off their escape route. He pointed his finger at a temple and ordered, release the demon assassins of the Flower Rain Sword Sect. An image of a real temple and a blurry drawing superimposed on each other. On this side, Bu Yunseal is rushing into a temple. His trail of blood extends across the ground. 3 men wielding whips quickly caught up. They stopped at the blood trail to examine it. The 3 men looked up at the wooden sign in front of the temple, then cautiously stepped 1 foot inside first. They then pulled a few more men in with them. They laughed gleefully, so you're in here, are you, just like a rat in a trap. One of them said contemptuously, no matter where you run, you won't escape the White Horse Whip gang, but at that moment, Bu Yunseal appeared behind him. This man quickly noticed, and immediately glanced behind him. Bu Yunseal swiftly swung his sword. The man with the horizontal haircut hurriedly shouted, behind you. He gritted his teeth and scornfully cursed, you fool, do you think I'd fall for such a shallow trap? The next second, they simultaneously lashed their whips at him. However, this time Bu Yunseal dodged to the right. And then to the left, easily deflecting all the incoming whips. The whips that were deflected struck the man with the horizontal haircut. He angrily shouted, bastard, are you reading the White Horse Whip's movements? But Bu Yunseal didn't care, decisively rotating his sword. Then stomped his foot and launched himself forward. He rushed forward and decisively slashed at him. Blood spurted from the horizontal haircut man's neck, startling his companion. Seeing him rushing towards him again, this man cursed nervously, "Damn it." With that, he swung his whip again, but the whip was too long and hit the ceiling. The companion realized and his face paled, thinking, "This is bad, it's too cramped in here." At this moment, Bu Yunseal had rushed close. He once again slashed at this man. Watching his comrades being killed one by one, the surviving man now felt fear, thinking, "This guy, he deliberately lured us here." At that moment, a powerful aura of killing intent emanated from Bu Yunseal. His face was extremely grim, wiping blood from his wound. He thought deeply, if fighting in a confined space, the White Horse Whip gang must narrow their range, their power decreases, and their attack directions are easier to predict. Moreover, the individual strength of each of them is nothing special. If I fight them one by one, I have a good chance of winning. He looked at each man lined up and assessed them. At this moment, the hooded leader at the front used all his strength to launch his whip in attack. The whip shot out and hit the wall. Then bounced back and rushed towards Bu Yunseal. However, he easily avoided it. Unexpectedly, the whip broke the wall, and finally struck Bu Yunseal. He fell hard into the rubble. The pain made Bu Yunseal frown, cursing inwardly, "Damn it." The whip hit the wall and bounced back. Seeing that he was weakened, the enemies quickly ran away, shouting, "Now's our chance, we must get out of here first." Unexpectedly, he bumped into something. The short-haired man looked up with a blank expression. A tall, sturdy man stood towering over them, and asked in a low voice, "What are you doing?" The next moment he suddenly shouted questioning, "Don't tell me you're planning to run away." The subordinate stammered to explain, "Big older brother, it's not like that, it's just that this place doesn't seem suitable for fighting." Before they could say more, they were decapitated in one swift blow. Fresh blood splattered everywhere along the path of the leader's whip. As he retracted his whip and stepped inside, he clicked his tongue and said, "As expected, you're not the kind of guy who brings subordinates along to climb to the upper echelons." Bu Yunseal peeked out from behind the wall. He stepped out to face him and asked, "Are you their leader?" He didn't answer the question but instead sized him up. "You're quite strong. Was that flower dance sword technique you used just now?" Bu Yunseal repeated in a probing tone, "You are." This man finally revealed his name. "My name is Wu Muncheng, what's yours?" But only silence answered him. A second later, he finally spoke up, intending to confirm, "So you are." Before he could finish speaking, Wu Muncheng interrupted with laughter, "A dying man." At this point, he lashed his whip at Bu Yunseal, finishing his sentence, "Doesn't need to know my name." The whip flew towards him, tightly wrapping around his sword blade. Wu Muncheng continued to speak calmly, "I heard that." The next moment, the whip tightened so much that Bu Yunseal's sword shattered. Wu Muncheng smugly asked, "The upper level of the flowing petals sword sect only teaches one defensive sword technique, right?" Hearing this, he became wary, wondering to himself, does he know about the mysterious jade dance? How does he know that? Could it be that he has an intelligence network that I'm unaware of? Seeing Bu Yunseal distracted, Wu Muncheng spun the whip rapidly, shouting, "What are you thinking about during a fight?" With that, he once again lashed the whip towards him. Bu Yunseal quickly dodged. He took out the remaining sword, observing the situation and thinking, he's smashed the walls and ceiling, fighting in a confined space is no longer an advantage against him. Just then, Bu Yunseal noticed a large opening. However, before he could take more than a few steps, he was pulled back by the whip. Bu Yunseal regained his footing. He quickly spun his sword, ready to fight. Wu Muncheng casually walked over and said, "How disappointing." He raised his hand again, preparing to unleash the whip, disdainfully saying, "With such poor swordsmanship, there's no way you can withstand the White Horse return." The whip struck the wall hard, and the next moment, it flew towards him in a spiral. The dense whip rushed forward, beginning to wrap around Bu Yunseal. Then, a series of long whips came flying in, wrapping him up in a ball, completely surrounding him. Wu Muncheng laughed triumphantly, "Before long, the White Horse slice will cut off your breath." Inside the circle, Bu Yunseal was trying to slash continuously, but he knew in his heart that a defensive sword technique like the mysterious jade dance could block attacks, but couldn't generate enough power to break the White Horse slice. Bu Yunseal closed his eyes, beginning to think, "What I need now is to remember the past when I was taught the mysterious jade dance." Bu Yunseal slowly tightened his grip on the sword hilt, countless sword rays being unleashed along with his intense will, a destructive power capable of splitting steel in two. Bu Yunseal's eyes suddenly snapped open. Wu Muncheng was now surprised by the scene before him. Seeing the sudden change in the whip sphere, he quickly laughed, still very contemptuous as he taunted, "So, you still have enough strength to struggle one last time." Even with your mysterious jade dance, he was cut off mid-sentence when he suddenly saw the sphere emitting intense sword rays. Wu Muncheng's face contorted in surprise. The next moment, the sphere was destroyed with a deafening explosion. From within the light emerged the figure of Bu Yunseal, raising his sword. He used the lightning bolt unparalleled technique, charging forward. In the blink of an eye, a sword strike smoothly slashed across Wu Muncheng. Blood sprayed from his body in his shock. In the end. What is this? As the words finished, Wu Muncheng collapsed powerlessly to the floor. Bu Yunseal's face was extremely calm, without the slightest change in expression. Wu Muncheng's body lay on the ground, his eyes wide open as if he hadn't had time to react. Bu Yunseal bent down and stood up. He was now exhausted, his breathing a little rapid. At that moment Bu Yunseal felt a twitch in his right hand. He frowned, thinking to himself, lightning bolt unparalleled, just as the instructor said, it truly is a murderous sword technique with terrifying power, but at the same time. Bu Yunseal brought his hand to his mouth and lightly sucked on it. Then, he held it up to look, his palm now filled with blood. He continued his train of thought, it's also a special martial art with the potential for incredible sublimation, but at my current level, it's difficult to wield it freely. Thinking this, Bu Yunseal looked over at Wu Muncheng's body, feeling secretly lucky. At any rate, it's fortunate that I was able to beat him, but I've wasted too much time here. Soon the restricted area will change, I have to move quickly. Suddenly, he sensed an oppressive aura. Bu Yunseal warily turned around to look, inwardly denying, impossible. A dark shadow appeared in his pupils. Bu Yunseal tensely wondered, why is he here, now? Before him stood a man radiating a dark aura. The man's face was icy and his eyes were terrifyingly bloodshot. Bu Yunseal was extremely horrified, muttering inwardly, Demon Slayer. The Demon Slayer looked at Bu Yunseal with extremely cold eyes. Bu Yunseal, sword in hand, had a cold and somewhat worried expression. Why was the Demon Slayer here? Could it be that during the battle, this place had become a restricted area? Bu Yunseal pointed his sword towards the Demon Slayer, but he didn't have to run away to avoid a fight if he obediently left the restricted area. Bu Yunseal took a step forward, his eyes fixed on the Demon Slayer standing in front of him. The Demon Slayer remained standing there, immensely imposing. Bu Yunseal carefully assessed the situation. Good, no reaction, it must be telling me to leave quickly. Thinking this, Bu Yunseal darted past the Demon Slayer. Before passing, Bu Yunseal glanced at the Demon Slayer. Suddenly, a large snake appeared, opening its enormous mouth towards Bu Yunseal. He was startled, turned around, with an incredibly incredulous look. A streak of light flashed across Bu Yunseal's neck, causing Bu Yunseal's head to fall from his neck. The Demon Slayer was the one who struck that lash at Bu Yunseal. Luckily he dodged quickly, losing only a few strands of hair. Bu Yunseal looked back at what touched him, only a cold, bloodshot gaze. He didn't sense the aura of a sword being swung. If not for the way of the wild beast, he would surely have died. Bu Yunseal lowered his stance further and further, beginning to assume an offensive posture. Bu Yunseal held his sword in front of him, his eyes revealing endless worry. Looking at the Demon Slayer standing in front of him, whose eyes were staring at him intently, he couldn't be fooled by that nonchalant appearance. If he moved even slightly, he would attack first. Bu Yunseal remembered what Sa Wu said, when predators hunt herbivores, predators are faster, but herbivores are not easily caught. Do you know why? Bu Yunseal's expression immediately changed. A tiger slowly approached. Bu Yunseal asked himself, is it because most herbivores move in a zigzag pattern, like a tiger hunting its prey? Bu Yunseal remembered Sa Wu's words, that's right, most predators can't easily hunt them, but top predators still succeed in hunting. For that reason, they attack in sync with the movements of the fleeing prey, like a tiger pouncing on its prey. Bu Yunseal turned to ask Sa Wu, so how do you deal with it? Sa Wu, with his hands on his hips, asked back, if I said they attack according to movement, then what should you do? Bu Yunseal looked up at Sa Wu, then. Bu Yunseal straightened his back and shouted. Then, he rushed past the Demon Slayer. I have to make him completely unable to predict my movements. Bu Yunseal acted while glancing back. The Demon Slayer, seeing Bu Yunseal's actions, slowly drew his sword and laughed, ho ho, twice. Bu Yunseal moved in a zigzag pattern to mislead the Demon Slayer, but the Demon Slayer remained locked onto Bu Yunseal. Predictable zigzag movements are the first thing to avoid. Bu Yunseal quickly moved behind the Demon Slayer. As quick as lightning, the Demon Slayer appeared in front of Bu Yunseal. He swung his sword down, but fortunately, Bu Yunseal reacted quickly and avoided the blade. Avoiding a predetermined attack with the way of the wild beast is the second. Bu Yunseal moved behind, creating an opening with unpredictable movements is the third. Bu Yunseal gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with fear as he looked at the demon slayer. The demon slayer pointed the tip of his sword directly at Bu Yunseal's face. The sword tip slid down to Bu Yunseal's neck, his eyes widened, and he was sweating profusely. Damn it, too late. Just as Bu Yunseal's sweat dripped, the demon slayer withdrew his sword, which Bu Yunseal couldn't believe. Bu Yunseal watched the demon slayer sheath his sword, his heart full of confusion as to why he stopped. Could it be that I have stepped out of the restricted area? The demon slayer retracted his stance, standing still like a statue. Bu Yunseal began to slowly move back, keeping his distance. Bu Yunseal looked at the demon slayer, his mind racing. Is all I've done just desperately avoid? Throughout the fight, I haven't created a single opening. Bu Yunseal quickly turned and ran, glancing back carefully. That is a master. Could it be that I am just a frog in a well who has never emerged? After walking for a while, the sky had turned to dusk. Bu Yunseal, covered in sweat, panted continuously. The demon slayer's mobility arts had reached a level that he could not fathom. The martial arts level of a master is indeed on a different level. Bu Yunseal remembered the back of that person, the murderer who killed grandfather. That person must also possess earth-shattering martial arts. Bu Yunseal stared ahead intently. If I want to avenge him, I must surpass that level. Just when he thought he could rest, someone sitting on a rock wiping a sword looked towards Bu Yunseal, and said in a cold voice, "Are you Bu Yunseal?" Hearing this, he panicked. The young man, while wiping blood from his sword, glanced at Bu Yunseal. "I've been looking for you for a long time. I heard you've learned the way of the wild beast." Bu Yunseal looked at the man with a very confused expression. He spoke as if he knew me very well. Could it be like that giant who used the white horse fan? He also shared information with others. That person finally finished cleaning his sword. He put both hands on his head. "Ah, that man picks up his sword hilt and stands up. A dying person like you doesn't need to know my name." That man dashes towards Bu Yunseal like lightning. "Farewell." Bu Yunseal bites her lip tightly at the man's action. Bu Yunseal easily dodges the attack by leaning her body, her eyes filled with murderous intent. That man smirks incessantly when he sees Bu Yunseal dodge the attack. "You're pretty good, you grasped the trajectory of the move beforehand with the senses of a beast." As he speaks, that man quickly dashes towards Bu Yunseal. "Indeed, you'll surely become one of the 10 demonic heirs." That man brings down a fatal blow. "If so, I'll eradicate the seeds of the demonic sect here." Bu Yunseal effortlessly blocks the attack with her sword. His moves have changed completely, but what are the seeds of the demonic sect? Bu Yunseal suddenly remembers what she was taught. "I know very well that not everyone gathered here wants to become one of the 10 demons." Yunseal looks up at the man, her eyes widening. Could it be him? The man dares to strike a fierce sword blow at Bu Yunseal, but she quickly blocks it. "Gur, I must eliminate distractions." Bu Yunseal's hand trembles from the impact of the blow. Bu Yunseal's face changes color due to the overwhelming force. Wait, this feeling. Not letting herself be overpowered, Bu Yunseal quickly counterattacks. A strike grazes across Bu Yunseal's face. Both sword tips are now drawn towards each other, an odd attractive force. At this moment, the image of her uncle appears before her eyes. Bu Yunseal remembers her childhood, following her uncle around, watching him examine corpses. "This guy has been hit by the 5 brave gate blade of the Pen clan of Hebei. How do you know that, Grandpa?" Bu Yunseal's grandfather turns to him and says, "Although there are no external wounds, all the bones are cracked. That's the characteristic of the 5 brave gate blade. The force reverberates. Each time weapons clash, it penetrates the opponent's body. Such a master rarely appears in Jianghu. What grave mistake did he make?" Bu Yunseal, at this point, recognizes which family the person in front of him belongs to, and yells, "5 brave gate blade, it's the Pen clan of Hebei, isn't it?" That man's expression changes when he realizes his identity has been recognized. The man, as if unable to believe his ears, asks again in bewilderment, "How do you know?" Bu Yunseal doesn't answer. The words of Bu Yunseal's grandfather from long ago echo in his head. Another characteristic of the 5 brave gate blade is the ultimate technique of attraction art. He asks again, not understanding. Attraction art, the grandfather begins to explain. It's one of the fundamental techniques that utilizes internal energy. Like a whirlwind sucking everything in, it pulls everything around it towards itself. This explains why the two swords are drawn to each other. Each move uses the attraction art, thereby disrupting the opponent's weapon. The sword's path is deflected, the moves are interrupted, the opponent panics and is swallowed up. Indeed, it's the style of the Hebei tiger, the Pen clan. Bu Yunseal innocently turns and asks, "Then is Hebei the strongest sect?" her grandfather. Hearing this, laughs incessantly. Attraction art, although annoying, also brings you closer to your opponent, so it's a double-edged sword that can harm yourself, therefore. Bu Yunseal, as if realizing something, I must take advantage of that attraction art. Bu Yunseal grips his sword tightly in his hand. Bu Yunseal stomps hard on the ground and dashes forward quickly to pull the opponent's sword towards her. He quickly closes the distance between them. The man begins to fear. Fine, I'll deal with you seriously, I am Peng Yu of Hebei. Peng Yu shouts loudly in Bu Yunseal's face, in the name of the Peng clan of Hebei, I will eradicate the seeds of your demonic sect. Bu Yunseal, without any fear, with wide open eyes, slams his sword into the ground. The sword in Bu Yunseal's hand separates the distance between the two. Bai Yu is utterly stunned by Bu Yunseal's action. What? He planted his sword in the ground. Peng Yu quickly rushes forward, slashing his sword at where Bu Yunseal is standing, separating him and his sword. Bu Yunseal, not allowing Peng Yu to gain an advantage, quickly kicks Peng Yu hard in the side. Bai Yu, in pain, stumbles backward, clutching his body. Bu Yunseal lifts his sword. Looking towards Peng Yu, he smiles, got you. Bu Yunseal's sword tip points towards where Peng Yu is standing. Peng Yu clutches himself but stubbornly says, even ordinary demonic sect members put on a show. Bu Yunseal smiles contentedly while holding his sword. The move is effective, but doesn't seem to cause much damage. That's to be expected, a body trained for so many years is naturally very sturdy. Bu Yunseal's face turns grim, but I've figured out how to break it. The words her grandfather said were deeply etched in her mind, strike after the opponent, control them, just be slightly faster than the enemy, if even by half a beat, and that is what is truly fast. A gust of wind blows, making Bu Yunseal's hair fly. He holds his sword in front of him. I must take advantage of the attraction art itself, unleashing swordplay even faster than the Overlord's blade. Peng Yu rushes forward with his sword, but Bu Yunseal still stands there calmly. The sword in Bu Yunseal's hand shakes non-stop, unable to resist the pull. Bai Yu flies up high, heading straight towards Bu Yunseal. He slowly and deliberately points the tip of his sword straight toward Peng Yu and places his swordsmanship accordingly. Then, with just a slight change of direction, as quick as lightning, Bu Yunseal changed the direction of her attack. In the blink of an eye, Bu Yunseal's sword was pointed straight at Peng Yu's eyes, much to his astonishment. Peng Yu reacted quickly, losing only a few strands of hair. He grunted. Then quickly retreated, creating distance between them both. What was that just now? Could he be planning to use the devouring void art? Bai Yu's face darkened, his eyes wide. Impossible. The devouring void art of the five-lake severing gate blade is so powerful it can suck in even distant boulders. Even a grand master swordsman would find it difficult to cleverly utilize that power. Bai Yu cursed inwardly. How could a brat like him do it? He charged forward quickly. Let's go. Bu Yunseal adopted a defensive stance, calmly looking up at Peng Yu. Then her gaze turned cold. It's useless. The stronger you attack, the faster the devouring void art will make my sword. Bu Yunseal charged forward, launching a series of attacks on Peng Yu. Peng Yu managed to block only one blow, then was quickly injured in the waist by Bu Yunseal. Peng Yu turned back, shouting in an unconvinced voice, how long do you think that trick can last? Peng Yu slashed down at Bu Yunseal, but he quickly leaned away to dodge it. Bu Yunseal glanced over, a little surprised. The devouring void art disappeared. Bai Yu, at this point, charged forward fiercely like a hunting beast. Dealing with you doesn't require the devouring void art. Peng Yu gripped the hilt of his sword tightly in his hand, charging towards Bu Yunseal to meet the attack. Peng Yu raised his sword high, a murderous aura gleaming in his eyes. Bu Yunseal, without any fear, lowered his eyes slightly. I've been waiting for this moment. Bu Yunseal stood still, beginning to channel the flower dance sword first style. Then he looked straight ahead, his eyes dark, mystic profound sword technique. Bu Yunseal stood still before Peng Yu's attack. He passed right by Bu Yunseal, as if he were invisible. When Peng Yu came to a complete stop, it created a very strong gust of wind. Bu Yunseal stood there, his body now covered in a series of injuries. In contrast to him, Peng Yu's body had absolutely no injuries. It seemed like he had one, but not at this moment. A slash appeared on Peng Yu's shoulder. Those slashes appeared more and more on Peng Yu's body, causing him to spit out blood. Peng Yu could no longer support his body at this point, quickly kneeling down. Bai Yu collapsed, hugging his knees. Could it be? Bu Yunseal stood proudly. Yes. He glanced at where Peng Yu was sitting, his voice cold. It's the flower dance sword first style, mystic profound sword technique, he thought to himself, feeling impressed. That was almost dangerous. Bu Yunseal gripped the sword tightly in his hand. To turn a deadly defensive sword form into an attack, he accepted all the remaining sword moves being directed at himself. Bai tried to straighten up, his voice somewhat admiring. I didn't expect you to use mystic profound sword technique in that way, I never would have thought of it. Bu Yunseal didn't respond, turning to leave. What, are you just going to leave? Bu Yunseal heard this and turned around. You have nothing to do with my grudges. Peng Yu was stunned to hear that. Peng Yu smiled wryly and said to Bu Yunseal, I didn't expect there to be someone like you among the demonic clans, how interesting. Bai Yu said straightforwardly to Bu Yunseal, don't let us meet again. Bu Yunseal looked at him without bothering to say anything, then turned and left decisively. Peng Yu leaned on his sword, watching Bu Yunseal's departing back. When he saw Bu Yunseal go far away, Peng Yu immediately fell backward. Just as Peng Yu closed his eyes to collect himself, someone walked up behind him. Bai Yu immediately noticed, opening his eyes and saying, have you come to kill an infiltrator like me? The demon slayer held his sword in his hand, his voice cold. Peng Yu of Hebei Peng family, it's truly a pity compared to someone from the orthodox path. Bai Yu closed his eyes and smiled wryly. So, you knew from the beginning. The demon corpse, hearing Peng Yu say that, turned cold. You underestimate the demon palace too much. Peng Yu raised his sword high. Farewell. In the blink of an eye, only a sea of blood remained. Just like that, the sky turned pitch black, the mountain in front stood tall and majestic. The wind incessantly blew through the canopy of trees. Someone was running frantically along the dirt path. That person stopped to catch their breath, panting. This person's hand was injured, they were clutching an arrow in their palm. Then forcefully pulled it out and threw it to the ground. The blood on this person's hand flowed ceaselessly. This person leaned against the base of the tree, breathing heavily with exhaustion. This person hugged their hand. Suddenly, someone walked up in front of that girl. Bad luck. Seo Jinha. Seo Jinha stared at the person in front of her, her eyes filled with murderous intent. The person stepped forward, walking towards Seo Jinha while laughing. You've been hit by the hidden weapons poison sex poison from Blood City, and you still plan to run. Anyway, without the antidote, you're as good as dead. Seo Jinha painfully gritted her teeth. Damn it, I didn't expect a group to use hidden weapons and poison techniques so systematically. Seo Jinha looked at the crowd of people in front of her. Indeed, there's a limit to being alone. The leader on the other side stepped forward. Are you planning to fight me with your left hand? The person laughed and mocked Seo Jinha relentless. No matter how talented you are, someone who is used to using their right hand can't suddenly use a sword with their left hand proficiently. She smiled in a dangerous way. Just give up. With that, she ordered her followers to charge and attack Seo Jinha. One of the people in front launched their hidden weapons towards Seo Jinha. Seo Jinha tried to grab her sword and deflect the hidden weapons. But unfortunately, one hidden weapon pierced straight into Seo Jinha's arm, causing her to wince in pain. Seo Jinha looked down at her arm, panting, damn it, I've been hit by a poison needle again, if I don't drink the antidote in another moment. The group of people saw that Seo Jinha had fallen into a weak position, and they all charged at once. Seo Jinha closed her eyes, bracing herself. This is it. But then Seo Jinha opened her eyes in surprise. One of those people fell down, and the others panicked, asking each other, who was that, who just attacked? Bu Yunseal rushed from behind towards the group of people. She now fearfully turned to face behind her. Bu Yunseal stared straight at her with a dark expression. Now Bu Yunseal held the sword tightly in her hand, her eyes sharp and cold. In the blink of an eye, he rushed forward at lightning speed, taking down everyone around him without giving anyone a chance to retaliate. Seo Jinha, standing leaning against a tree nearby, widened her eyes in surprise and couldn't say a word at the scene that had just happened. At this moment, all the enemy soldiers had fallen, and Bu Yunseal was standing in the middle. Holding in his hand was a sword stained red with the blood of his enemies, his eyes somewhat soulless as he looked at Seo Jinha. In Seo Jinha's eyes at this moment was true panic. When she saw Bu Yunseal's footsteps approaching, she quickly clarified, wait, I don't have any malicious intent towards you. But unexpectedly, he just sat down next to a nearby enemy, making Seo Jinha dumbfounded. After searching for a while, he quickly took out a vial of medicine, thinking, this is the antidote, now it will be easier to deal with the Blood City prison. Feeling that he had gotten what he needed, Bu Yunseal turned to leave, but suddenly Seo Jinha called out, wait, wait. He glanced back and replied, what is it? Seo Jinha panted heavily, struggling to speak, I've been poisoned by the Blood City prison, in less than half an hour, it will spread throughout my entire body. Hearing that, Bu Yunseal didn't budge, and replied casually, it seems you've misunderstood, I came here to kill all of you, including you, you're just someone I don't need to kill myself, so I left you. At this moment, Seo Jinha lowered her face and said, that's right, if I'm left alone, I'll die anyway, I'm just an opponent you have to kill. Here, she suddenly exclaimed excitedly, so how about this, if you give me the antidote, I'll stand on your side. The words immediately stunned Bu Yunseal. But then he quickly changed his attitude, his face full of disgust. Why should I do that? Seeing the lifeline in front of her, Seo Jinha immediately explained, there are only about 20 people left alive now, and besides you and me, everyone has formed their own factions. Then she continued to prove, no matter how strong you are, you can't fight them alone. If you cooperate with me, you understand their martial arts and characteristics, it will definitely be beneficial. After that, Seo Jinha emphasized with pleading eyes, most importantly, if you save my life, I will absolutely not betray you. Seeing her say that, Bu Yunseal pondered, from what I've seen so far, even though you're arrogant and independent, you don't seem like a traitor or a liar. He asked with probing eyes, what's the condition? At this moment, Seo Jinha's tears and sweat streamed down her face as she said, until it's just you and me left, we'll deal with the enemies together and not attack each other. Bu Yunseal immediately fell silent, not responding right away. This made Seo Jinha worried and afraid to breathe loudly, waiting for his reply. Bu Yunseal looked at the vial of antidote in his hand. Without saying a word, he quickly threw it to Seo Jinha, startling her. Catching the vial of antidote, she immediately said, thank you. Then, gritting her teeth and enduring the pain, she poured the medicine onto the wound on her arm. Suddenly, a sound came out, drawing both of their attention. Bu Yunseal's eyes are full of confusion. Does this sound mean there is a new restricted area? Then he turned to Seo Jinha and said, I have to leave here immediately. Seeing Bu Yunseal's strange expression, he asked, why, but it seems like this place is not limited. Bu Yunseal quickly explained, think about it, most of the areas have been blocked, but there is a new restricted area, which means. Before the words could finish, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed. They laughed excitedly, looking at the two of them. Following closely was the silver-haired one with hidden weapons in hand, and another with a white band around his head, clutching a leather whip tightly. Along with them were two others, one of whom also wielded an old whip. They formed a circle, surrounding the two. Observing the situation, Bu Yunseal grew anxious. The survivors were likely to come here, were they too late? Among them was one with his hair tied back with a red string, a strange smile playing on the corner of his lips. His expression was frighteningly calm, his vacant eyes smiling meaningfully. Catching sight of that expression, Bu Yunseal realized that this one was different from the rest. Just then, one with his hair tied short at the back of his neck drew his sword and spoke, what's this? Are you all waiting to see who goes first? If so, we should just kill these two here and be done with it. Looking at the two, the silver-haired one began to reveal his knowledge. On one side is Bu Yunseal, who has learned the beast way of the Nangya sect. He then spoke of Bu Yunseal's strengths, and on the other side is Seo Jinha, who not only has formidable swordsmanship but has also investigated all the cultivators. They can't be underestimated. It turns out these two have joined forces. Hearing him say that, the two quickly realized, so they really know all about us and Seo Jinha. As if telepathically, the two looked at each other. Suddenly, Seo Jinha rolled up his sleeve, revealing the injury from earlier, subtly signaling to Bu Yunseal. Seeing that action, Bu Yunseal understood, that bottle was the powdered antidote from earlier, so that's it. At that moment, Seo Jinha forcefully tossed the antidote bottle and shouted, Bu Yunseal, I'll release the descent wisdom powder, if so, we can win. In this moment of heavy smoke, the two quickly took the opportunity to flee, and the others realized something was going on. After that, they all panicked and covered their noses. Is that the descent wisdom poison of the blood prison realm? Damn it. In this moment, the two fully utilized their strength to run away from here. Suddenly, one of them realized something unusual. Wait. Then, he shouted, this isn't descent wisdom powder. Hearing that, the group immediately reacted, it's not poison, they dare deceive us, capture them. At this moment, Bu Yunseal also guessed that they had discovered the trick and sneered, this kind of powder is only used to create a smokescreen, very suitable to deceive the opponent's eyes. But returning to the main issue, while running, he thought of a way. This wide open space is disadvantageous for us, we must go to the Rocky Mountains with many small caves. While running, Seo Jinha conveniently picked up one of their swords and said, you think the same as me, don't you? We must quickly find a cave that benefits us. Bu Yunseal added, I know a place. Then he began to describe its shape, a cave with a narrow entrance and a long tunnel. Hearing that, Seo Jinha was surprised. He even knows this. It's already unbelievable that he learned the beast way. While running behind him, Seo Jinha wondered, who is this guy anyway? At that time, the group of people chased after them from behind. Both of them immediately accelerated and ran towards the designated direction. Right in front of them was the destination. Seo Jinha was delighted, "We're here." Suddenly, a faint mist appeared, causing both of them to stop immediately and become alert. Seo Jinha wondered, "Why is there fog like this?" Bu Yunseal added, "Something's not right." Finishing his sentence, a series of individuals, wearing cloaks and masks appeared. Seeing this, Seo Jinha immediately realized, "Soul Reapers, is this a restricted area?" Bu Yunseal replied, "They must be observing the situation." His eyes, full of vigilance, glanced over them and said, "They deliberately placed the restricted area here to prevent you and me from running away." Hearing this, Seo Jinha cursed, "Damn it, what do we do?" Bu Yunseal then replied, "As long as we don't cross the boundary, the Soul Reapers won't attack." Having arrived here, Bu Yunseal decided, "If we have to fight anyway, fighting right here wouldn't be so bad." Then he continued, "Having our backs against the restricted area is no different than standing in a cave with a blocked exit." Seeing this, Seo Jinha understood and drew his sword, "Guess that's how it has to be." Immediately, the two stood in a battle-ready stance. At this moment, they also chased after them. There's no escape route anymore. They began to approach the two. Everyone smiled with enjoyment and excitement. Seo Jinha and Bu Yunseal stood solemnly in defensive stances. The Soul Reapers stood there motionless. In this moment, one of them, unable to contain the excitement surging within, laughed sinisterly, "This is getting really troublesome, let's not draw it out any longer." Then his words came out as a command, "Let's fight a decisive battle now." Everyone charged forward immediately. They rushed straight at the two of them. One guy jumped up, raised his sword high, and aimed it straight at Seo Jinha. The others also charged in one after another. Up above, someone was watching from the shadows. Ryan Young rubbed his chin and commented, "This might be the final battle to determine the 10 war demons." Hidden weapons flew in a flurry. Yunseal quickly dodged and weaved. He rushed to counterattack. The sword in his hand was swung, aimed at the enemy. A fierce melee broke out, blood splattering everywhere with the movements. The men in black were slashing and stabbing at each other chaotically. Jinha blasted through the enemies, his eyes never even blinked. He stopped frowning with annoyance. Then gritted his teeth as he had to take a sword strike from above, forcing Jinha to retreat a long way. Yunseal's back touched Jinha's back. They were forced to support each other. The remaining men in black surrounded them both, each with a weapon ready. By then, their blades were already stained with blood. Chanha lowered his sword, the tip pointing towards the ground. A question was then asked, "Will I die here? I've given everything, I have no regrets." These words confused Yunseal, no regrets. The image of Janyang appeared in Yunseal's mind. His satisfied smile and death echoed. He froze, unconsciously muttering in his head, "I cannot die in this place." Just as he thought that, the men in black rushed at him, intending to attack. The sword in Yunseal's hand was gripped tightly. He swung a blow at the two men rushing towards him. In an instant, they were wide-eyed as their bodies gushed with blood. Yunseal's figure flashed past the men attacking him. He leapt up high, the sword in his hand swiftly swung, blood from those men then appeared. They cursed loudly, "That bastard, what kind of swordsmanship is that?" They decided to change targets, all heading towards Yunseal to attack. "Kill him first." The teachings echoed in his head, "Just act on your feelings and instincts." The voice of that man also appeared, "Haven't you already mastered my old man's swordsmanship?" Yunseal's eyes turned bloodshot. Several lightning-fast slashes were unleashed. In a flash, the attackers were all eliminated. This scene made Ryan Young and the person behind him so shocked that they couldn't blink. The attackers all collapsed around him. Yunseal mused as he watched a fist being swung, "Sa Wu's practical swordsmanship, if it's like this." His eyes widened. The sword controlled by Yunseal easily blocked the opponent's attack. Yunseal cried out in pain as he felt the difference in strength. The other guy grinned, laughed arrogantly, "Got you." At that moment, a light flashed, making Yunseal's eyes widen in surprise. The other guy's fist collided with his sword. And then Yunseal's whole body was blown backward, and the sword was shattered into pieces. Yunseal flew far away. Hakyung stood in shock watching Yunseal. Another man in black sneered, "Too bad, but he was destined to die anyway." He cried out in alarm, "No, get up, Yunseal, that thing." Yunseal, on this side, with a bloodied face, reached out to touch the cut on his face. Someone's voice echoed, "This is a restricted area." Yunseal's eyes widened, vacant. The figure of a demon slayer appeared before Yunseal. A powerful slash swept across. In Yunseal's eyes, the image of a hand reaching out was reflected.